Wait, how many characters are in Radiant Dawn? Oh, fuck it, it'll just be a 4-hour video. Hey, how's it going? I'm gonna do another tier list because I feel like it. Because I recently beat Radiant Dawn on hard mode again for like the upteenth time. I should probably establish that Radiant Dawn is my favorite Fire Emblem, and I've played it through... I don't know, like, at least double-digit number of times. Like, I fucking love Radiant Dawn. I think that shit is so much fun to play. Like, compared to other Fire Emblems, like, I played through Revelation literally just one time. I played through Birthright twice. I played through Three Houses fully once. We won't talk about the Forbidden Game ever again. But Radiant Dawn is, like, something I can keep coming back to. I think it's so replayable. There's how many units? Like, 70 plus, and they're all interesting and fun to use. Or Liar and Kaiser. But, you know, we can't all be winners. Reasonably good hard mode, outside of the fact that they take away enemy ranges, detectors for no fucking reason. Please someone mod that back into the game. That's the worst fucking part of hard mode. I'm getting off topic. I'm just gonna go on a tangent real quick. Whatever fucking gremlin at Insys, whatever fucking ghouly goblin working at his... typing at his desk.
No range indicators, they'll love it.
I don't know why he's Weevil Underwood, but it's fine. If the person who did that is listening, fuck you. I hope you fall in a well. Alright, let's establish ground rules first. Number 1, we will be playing on hard mode, because I think that making a tier list for anything for normal or below is kind of redundant, because when Fire Emblem is easy, every unit is good, and you can use whoever you want. Although, I will say, having just completed my most recent hard mode run, with Fiona and Volug doing work in the tower, I can assuredly say anyone in Radiant Dawn is usable, straight up. Number 2, there will be no excessive grinding. When I say excessive grinding, I don't mean going into something like one endgame or 1-7. By the way, when I refer to chapters, I'm going to be referring to chapters as 1 blank or 2 blank, 3 blank, 4 blank. That means I'm going part 1, chapter 2 would be 1-2. So if you're unfamiliar with that convention, now you know. Basically, no boss abusing, no excessive grinding to get Leonardo to marksman in whatchamacallit, 1-7, which I did on an easy mode playthrough one time, which was fucking hilarious. None of that. No excessive grinding. When I say excessive, I mean stuff like the infinitely respawning Lagoos in 4-5 is completely fine, because that's out of your control. That is effectively 4 Lagoos spawning every single turn, and you basically have to kill all the Lagoos to get to Izuka in that chapter. So I say that's free game, and I think it's a really good source of XP. And number 3, we will be playing relatively quickly. Not super quickly, we're not playing LTC, which is lowest turn count, again if you're unfamiliar, and we will be going generally at a quick pace in an attempt to get the max amount of bonus XP from each chapter. Again, if you're unfamiliar with bonus XP, it basically means complete chapter in a certain number of turns to receive bonus experience, which is always good. I love bonus experience, it's a great mechanic. It's a really good way to incentivize the player to play quickly, which is great. This tier list is designed to kind of be a middle ground between casual play and full, like, hardcore, just straight up, like, optimizing every single strategy play. It's like a nice middle ground. That's my attempt. I should probably... This is, I guess a 3.5? There's going to be a lot of mentions about availability and how fucked it is in Radiant Dawn. So, get ready for that. I can't just have a big thing on the screen that says availability is important. God knows, future me is going to edit that shit in. He's going to fucking do it. He's a maniac. Oh, god damn it, he's already doing it. But I can't stress this enough. Availability is very important for characters in Radiant Dawn, more so than in any other game. Because it is so fucked for a lot of characters. Like, straight up, some characters have perfectly good stats, perfectly good growths, great weapon ranks, good combat ability, good utility, all these great features, but it doesn't fucking mean diddly squat because they're not in the game. So if you have big issues with me mentioning availability as being something important, I saw some of you fuckers in the comments, it's an important stat. Listen! I'm not trying to be antagonizing. I think everyone's opinion is valid. But mine's more important because I'm making the video. Am I joking? I'll let you decide. Yes, that should do for rules. Okay! Yeah, let's just start with Micaiah. Micaiah is your lord. I think Micaiah gets shit on a lot. I'm gonna place Micaiah in B tier for now. Micaiah is a really interesting lord. I actually really like Micaiah. Right off the bat, Micaiah is not quite as bad as everyone says she is. Like, yes, her combat ability isn't good. Or, I wouldn't classify it as terrible, but it's not very good. It's very mediocre at best. She has a nice niche with the Thani, or the Tani, whatever you fucking pronounce it, of being able to nuke Armor Knights and Cavaliers off the face of the earth, which is always hilarious when it happens. God bless the animator for whoever designed that animation. Looks great, feels great every single time. That is nice. Having a magic effective weapon against Armor Knights and Cavs is delightful, and there's a reasonable amount of Armor Knights and Cavs to the point where it is actually useful. However, outside of that, she basically does nothing in combat. Bases are fine. Radiant Dawn is, for the most part, a growth game compared to a base game. Well, it differs, but for part 1 especially, growths are pretty important. And Micaiah on the growth front is iffy. I'm almost reluctant to say iffy because I'm gonna post a screenshot really quickly right here, right now, of my final Micaiah from like 4E from my most recent run. This is not an average Micaiah. Look at that screenshot. That's no boosters, literally 0 boosters. I just got unbelievably fucking lucky. Guess what? She still wasn't very good in combat. Micaiah's growths they're not terrible. They're very lopsided. Obviously, she has a monstrous magic growth of 80%, which is absolutely fucking huge. She should be getting magic basically every level in the sense that an 80% should be hitting every time, but it doesn't always, so every 5th level she won't be gaining magic. She's very, very likely to cap magic is what I'm saying. Same with res and luck. She is very, very likely to cap those stats, which is nice, but ultimately doesn't really matter that much. I feel like stats on Micaiah aren't actually that important. Like, her speed growth is bad. She's slow. Micaiah on average is very slow, to the point where she will get doubled by the majority of units and die, because she has no durability whatsoever. She has the durability of the psyche of your average 3 Houses fan. There we go. I said it. You give her the Seraph Robe, she'll probably still get one shot. Honestly, putting defensive boosters on Micaiah, it really doesn't help in any way. She's actually just made of tissue paper. She will melt at the first sign of contact. On the first sign of contact, she will just immediately disintegrate. Do not leave this poor silver-haired girl, this filthy branded, in enemy range, or she will die. That being said, Micaiah's growths aren't great outside of magic and res, but it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way, in that Micaiah's growths don't really matter for the most part. Because, one, the Thani's might, and like her combat prowess comes from just using the Thani to nuke Armor Knights or Cavs, and that's from effective damage, which is from the weapon, so her stats basically don't matter for it. Like, she can get magic, but it'll be adding 1 damage, and most of the time, like, you're killing Armor Knights with super overkill damage, like, it's not even necessary. So in a way, that doesn't help. But, in a way, it also does help Micaiah, is that her growths don't matter. It's like the nihilism thing of like, oh, life doesn't matter, or yeah, life doesn't matter. Micaiah's stats don't matter. Yeah, Micaiah's stats don't matter. Which means I don't need to worry about this unit. Which leads me to Micaiah's most important part, and I feel like this doesn't get enough, like, recognition or credit. Micaiah's most important feature is sacrifice. People don't talk about sacrifice. Sacrifice is such a valuable skill. It's actually uncanny. Not for the reason you'd expect, not for its healing capability, but for the fact that sacrifice allows you to gain 10 XP basically every single turn. As I stated in the beginning, Radiant Dawn likes to take away your XP, specifically in the early game. XP is super tight in the early game. It gets more generous as the game goes on, but in early game, it's rough. It's a fight for your life. You cannot train everyone in Radiant Dawn. You have to leave people behind. But Micaiah is kind of fortunate in the fact that she is not affected by the hard mode experience reduction that much, because Sacrifice will always give you 10 XP. Again, if you're unfamiliar with Sacrifice, it's a skill that allows Micaiah to heal another person at the cost of her own health. I.e., if Sothe is missing 10 health, Micaiah can use Sacrifice on him to heal him for 10, and she will take 10 damage. Regardless, this isn't the important part of Sacrifice. That heal is most of the time not relevant in the slightest. But the fact that she's able to consistently gain 10 XP every single turn effectively, because there's usually, like, you usually have damaged units in Radiant Dawn. People be hurting in Radiant Dawn. You take damage a lot. The fact that she's able to consistently gain XP means that she will actually level reasonably consistently, and you might not think that 10 XP every single turn is that significant, but oh dear god, it adds up so quickly. By gaining 10 XP outside of combat, you're effectively opening up XP for other units, like Nolan or Edward. So, in a weird, twisted way, Micaiah is kind of giving XP to other units by nature of not entering combat, which is actually really, really nice and valuable. And then that leads me into Micaiah's promotion, which is actually really important. There's fucking like 90 more characters after this, and I've spent like 20 minutes talking about Micaiah. Oh, I hate Micaiah's promotion at a personal level, just because it turns an interesting character with a nice niche in combat and general utility, and the fact that she will steadily level, into a staff bot. She's a staff bot from part 3 onwards. But Micaiah's promotion gives her the ability to use staves. I believe she gets C or B in staves, but either way, she can use Physica base. It's so boring. Micaiah from part 3 onwards is so dull, because you go through all the effort of like sacrificing every single turn to give a stat. Well, maybe she'll be important. Or maybe she'll do something in part 3. Oh, I leveled her light rank. Oh, she can use the Purge Tome she gets in 313. It doesn't fucking matter. Just give her a goddamn men staff. That's all she does. Yeah, Micaiah's promotion, as much as I despise it, it is very good for her because it lets her just be a staff bot, and the staff utility is really, really helpful in part 3. The Dawn Brigade only has like 3 chapters, all of which staff utility is helpful because you are taking a lot of damage on those chapters. In 3.6 especially, you need healers because the Tiger Lagoons in 3.6 will absolutely tear your army to shreds. So yeah, she has great utility from part 3 onwards, like okay XP utility from part 1, and in part 4, again, she's really just a staff bot. And I guess I should talk about availability. Micaiah has some of the best availability in the game, being available from prologue all the way to endgame. The only unit in part 1 that is available from the start to the finish of the part. The most important thing is you get her enough to the point where you can absolutely train her. Like, it's absolutely possible to get her to level 20 before her promotion. Promotion is forced at the end of part 1, and you can definitely get her there in time. Borderline impossible to get her to level 20 before she promotes to Light Priestess in part 4, though. Even with giving up Paragon. I should mention that as well. You get the Paragon Scroll in 1.6. I should talk about Paragon Scroll, because this game, well, there's so many fucking things to talk about in Radiant Dawn. The Paragon Scroll in 1.6 is a vital part of leveling. Paragon allows your unit to level absurdly fast if you know what you're doing, and Micaiah is a great recipient of that. She's not the best recipient, but I will say that she is one of the few people who can use it in part 1 at all. Like, because you can't use Paragon unpromoted. It requires 15 capacity, and unpromoted units only have 10. But for some reason, Micaiah has 20 total, so with Shove, she has 15 available. She can use it. Now, other candidates are like Sothe, or Volug, or Zihark, or Tauroneo, or like promoted units or Lagoos units. And these units basically don't gain any XP from part 1, because they're obviously very high level for their part, so they gain very little XP from combat. Like, they're usually gaining like 1, 5, 10 from a boss or something like that. Now, obviously, later into the part that changes because enemies get higher level, and then you can give it to other units, and you should probably have one of the Dawn Brigade promoted at that point, be it Nolan, be it like Edward, if you really like that gold. I like that golden boy. Do you like that golden boy? Or Jill, whatever. You'll probably have a promoted unit at that point. You can just dump experience into them. But before that, from 1.7 all the way to 1.9, you're probably going to have Micaiah as your only like viable candidate for Paragon, and she can make pretty good use of it. Turning 10 sacrifices for a level into 5 sacrifices for a level is actually really nice. And if you want to get crazy, you can just throw out a Light or a Thani every now and then. Raise that Light rank. You never know. This game fucking gives you arm scrolls all the time. Maybe you can get it to A rank. I think Micaiah gets shit on a lot, and she's definitely weak. But the fact that she has great utility in part 3, good XP utility in part 1 from the fact that you don't need to baby her at all, and great availability, staff utility. Like, she just does a lot of things well. She's not amazing. She's not an amazing unit. There's going to be some units in S tier where I'll just say, this unit does everything, and that's why they're S tier. Whereas Micaiah does not do everything, that's why she's not S tier. Micaiah is a unit who excels in certain areas and is absolute dookie dog shit in others. But as being a supportive utility unit, she's actually great. You could argue she'd be a C tier unit, but I honestly just think having like all of her staff utility in part 3, great availability, like she just has a lot going for her. Yeah, Micaiah, B tier. A very solid unit that I think gets shit on a lot. You could definitely argue for her in C tier, but I think B tier is good. Alright, Edward. Edward's an easy C tier unit. Edward, oh man, Edward, right off the bat, right away, Edward is the unit that gets screwed over by hard mode the most, the absolute most, and it's really unfortunate to me because I love Edward. I think Edward is one of the most fun units in the game to use. He's a Myrmidon, he joins from Prologue, doesn't have perfect availability, but he has basically perfect availability from part 1. You'll be doing a lot of work in early game because you are really, really thirsting for just damage and like a consistent damage output. And Edward is a consistent damage output in early game. He has that. Edward has okay bases. His most charming aspect is his base 14 speed, I believe, like 13, 14, which is enough to double almost every single unit in Prologue, which is really nice. He's basically going to be doing all the heavy lifting in Prologue, and then some of the heavy lifting in 1.1, and then a little bit of heavy lifting in 1.2, and then like kill one dude in 1.3, and then 1.4 comes around and he does nothing. which is unfortunate. Edward falls off really, really hard, because I'll talk about what he does. Like, what are the good parts about Edward? Edward has good availability, and his growths are excellent. His growths are really, really good. I should establish that Radiant Dawn has pretty high growths across the board, but Edward's especially are, like, fantastic. I want to say he has, like, a 60% strength, speed, and skill growth, which is, like, absolutely phenomenal. It means, on average, every other level he'll be gaining strength and speed. Now, while this is a good thing, this can also screw him over really, really hard in the sense that hard mode reduces XP. And unlike Micaiah, Edward does not have a consistent way to gain XP outside of combat. He needs combat to thrive. You can give him bonus XP, but bonus XP is also super limited. And while he is a good recipient of that, there isn't that much to go around, and there are potentially better units for it. Edward, due to being a growth-based unit, he is obviously susceptible to getting stat screwed. And if Edward gets stat screwed, he becomes a worthless pile of mush. Edward needs to be able to double things. I can't stress this enough. He needs to be able to double. If he can't double, he does nothing. Because Edward's entire damage output comes from the fact that he's dealing 5 times 2 rather than 10 times 1. Like Nolan. Nolan's usually doing like 15 times 1, and that's where all of his damage comes from. The fact that he's hitting once hard, which in Radiant Dawn is way more valuable, because for the record, Radiant Dawn enemies are very quick. They're very fast. Radiant Dawn is one of the Fire Emblems where I feel like I'm doubling the least. Edward has the privilege of starting with a reasonably high speed, and enemies not starting with that high speed early in the game. That being said, if he doesn't level speed consistently, like, I'm pretty sure if he doesn't gain strength speed on his first level, Edward stops doubling in the next chapter. And at that point, he's already way, way worse. And Edward that doesn't double is both very fragile. I should mention that Edward is very much a glass cannon. Like, as good as his offensive growths are, his defensive growths are quite poor. No, Edward is... He gets screwed over by... Let's just go over what screws over Edward. Hard mode, reducing XP, massively screws him over. You know what else screws him over? The removal of weapon triangle. Because Edward is primarily a dodge tank from having high speed, and there being a multitude of axe units that he can fight, like, pretty well in normal and easy. Like, not flawlessly, obviously, but, like, he can fight them pretty well. But Radiant Dawn hard mode just flat out removes the weapon triangle, which means that plus 10 hit and avoid he would be getting, and 1 damage, which is 2 damage since he's doubling everything, is just completely gone. Which means axe units have a much higher chance to hit him, and this is rough. Dodge tanking in general in Radiant Dawn is pretty tough, and Edward, like, he just can't, he cannot dodge tank early game anymore. He is so squishy, it just doesn't work. It's much better to be like a bulky defense or res tank in Radiant Dawn. To be able to take hits is so valuable, and Edward can't. He can take 1 hit, and then it's like, alright, gotta back off, I gotta go fucking, like, huff a vulnerary, gotta huff these special juices into my nose, otherwise I'm going to collapse. And I guess we should talk about the elephant in the room. What's that? No, I'm petting my nice silver goose. Oh, what's that? Oh, Zihark the golden goose came in. Zihark is just better than Edward. In basically every single way. Oh, it's so depressing to talk about. Edward is worse than Zihark. On both normal and hard mode. On easy mode, I'd say he's probably better. Just because he, at the very least, he does scale better than Zihark. And if you have shit zillions of XP, yes, Edward is crazy. Because he just grows and snowballs out of control. But on hard mode, he does not have enough time to grow before Zihark shows up and goes, hey, I'm you, but better in every way. My affinity is better, my bases are better, and my growths aren't even that much worse. In fact, my speed growth is actually better. And speed is very, very valuable. Yeah, no, Zihark is... He's just better! It's as simple as that. It's really difficult to justify using Edward when Zihark is just better. I will say deployment slots aren't actually that tight in Radiant Dawn compared to something like... I don't know, literally any other game. Radiant Dawn's actually quite generous with deployment slots to the point where it's like, hey, you can deploy everyone for this chapter. It's like, hey, great. I can deploy my level 3 Meg, thanks. Really appreciate that. I always needed another shove. Obviously, there's always the thing of it's like, well, he's not competing with Zihark because you can just use both. And it's like, yeah, no, I can just use both. That's not completely incorrect. But Zihark will just make you wonder why you're using Edward in the first place. Edward does get a personal weapon. He gets the Khalid Bolg. Out of the 3 personal weapons that the 3 Goobers get, it's the weakest for sure, because it gives him plus 8 luck when equipped, which isn't enough, because that's plus 8 avoid, and that's just not helpful compared to the Lunasa's plus 5 speed, which is incredible, and it's unfortunately stuck on Leonardo, or Tarvos's plus 4 defense, which is also incredible, helps Nolan out a lot. The Caliburn doesn't really do much to help him. I think at the end of the day, Edward is C tier rather than something like B tier, because while he does do some like heavy lifting in early game, I mean like very early game, like literally 1 prologue, 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, and that's it. After that, he is immediately just going to start rolling down the hill and just completely fall off. And then he just requires so much XP, and it's just like, you could give him the energy drop, but that you get an energy drop in, what, 1-2? Yeah, you get it from the chest in 1-2. And that energy drop is highly contested. Let me fucking tell you. There are so many candidates for that energy drop, and Edward is probably, like, one of the weakest. With the removal of Weapon Triangle, reduced XP across the board, no bonus XP for him, like, he's on the crappiest weapon type. Swords, while they have a consistent 1-2 range option in this game, which is good, it's definitely the crappiest because it can't be forged, and for some reason, the, like, Tomahawk Spear version of their 1-2 range weapon, I forget what it's called, like, it's like the Tempest Sword or something. That weapon, while really, really good in might, it hits like a fucking truck. Its hit is objectively garbage at 50, and there's no way to improve that, and that sucks. Yeah, Edward he's just weak. This boy is crying in the club, thinking about easy mode XP. I will say, on easy mode, this character is probably S tier, because he can grow out of control really quickly. The problem is hard mode won't let him, because there's barely enough XP to go around, and there's just better units for him. Sorry, Edward. I do love using him, but he's definitely a C tier unit. Leonardo! Leonardo is an E tier unit right away. I love Leonardo. He is not a good unit by any sense of the word. But I don't think he's quite an F tier. F tier unit is reserved for... I saw someone describe this in the comments of the Sacred Stones tier list. F is for fun. It is a for fun unit. And I don't think Leonardo quite qualifies as a for fun unit. Even though he is a very fun unit to use. I'll go over Leonardo's positives first. 1. He does have good availability. He joins from Prologue, is basically available throughout all of Part 1, excluding 1.9, but that's a finicky chapter that basically doesn't count. So that's great. You can train him as much as you like. God knows he's probably going to gain a few levels because you need every source, every single avenue of damage that you can get in early chapters is very valuable. And while he doesn't do much, it's still something. Him doing 6 damage to an enemy fighter might be enough for Edward and Nolan to finish him off. He can contribute in some ways in the early chapters. Number 2. In 1-6-1. I love Radiant Dawn's naming convention, it's lovely. In 1-6-1, there are a ton of Pegasus Knight reinforcements. And they're actually quite annoying. They spawn in irritating positions, and they move in such a way that it's very difficult to deal with them on the turn after they spawn. These guys aren't, like, particularly difficult to kill, I'll admit. They're not that fast, they don't hit that hard. But, at the very least, Leonardo is the only unit in the army who can just one-shot them with the steel bow, which is very, very helpful. Again, it's like, there's a lot of units in this game where they effectively act as a delete a unit button, and for one chapter, I say single chapter, not even a whole chapter, like half a chapter, half of a part of a chapter, Leonardo can act as a delete button for a single enemy type that basically never appears again until part 4. Which is nice. It is, again, isn't much, but it's something. It's a nice niche. It's incredibly niche. It's like a 1%, less than a 1% of a pie chart. Number 3, Leonardo gets an excellent pref weapon, an excellent personal weapon with the Lunasa. The Lunasa is an 18 might bow that gives you +5 speed when it's equipped. This bow is cracked. This is one of the best personal weapons in the entire series, in my opinion. It is absolutely obscene just how good this weapon is. It is so good, in fact, that it can almost fix him. It's almost, the bow straight up said, looked at Leonardo, looked at his Poindexter ass nose and like fucking dyed blonde hair and said, I can fix him. Unfortunately, the Lunasa cannot completely fix his issues, but giving Leonardo +5 speed is very much appreciated, as we now need to move on to what Leonardo does poorly, which is basically everything else. Leonardo is an archer. Archers are always pretty universally bad in Fire Emblem, with some there's an exception in this game. But for the most part, archers aren't very good, especially in Radiant Dawn, where it's predominantly enemy phase oriented, which means you need to be able to do something in enemy phase, i.e. take hits or do damage or both, and Leonardo can do neither because he's fragile and doesn't do very much damage, and enemies will never attack him at 2 range. Leonardo also has, and this, I think this is the biggest point against Leonardo for the most part, is that Leonardo has some of the worst growths in the entire game. And I'm not talking like poor. I'm talking like genuinely fucking terrible, to the point where every single time Leonardo levels and I see that he gets HP, skill, res, luck, I'm like, yeah, that adds up, because those are his only good growths. Leonardo has, I think, a 40-ish% strength growth, and more importantly, he has the same speed growth as Micaiah at 35%, which is awful. Straight up awful. This is what I mean when I said Lunasa can kind of fix his speed, in the sense that giving him +5 speed is really nice, but he's still not going to double anything. That's the problem. His speed is so fucking atrocious that he just can't do anything, and his strength isn't good enough to the point where he can deal, like, good chunks of damage at the very least. Like, for reference, I'm just going to compare Leonardo to other archers in Radiant Dawn. There are 2 other archers, 3 if you count Astrid, which I don't. We'll get to her. There's Rolf and there's Shinon. Shinon, we'll get to them obviously, but Shinon is a much stronger unit, and even someone like Rolf, who is literally the worst unit in the game in Path of Radiance, is much stronger than Leonardo. For the main reason of those two have good bases and good growths, whereas Leonardo has tolerable bases and terrible growths. Yes, you get him early, yes, you get plenty of time to train him, but as I mentioned with Edward, you get reduced XP gain, and again, do you really want to dump all of this XP on a meme unit? Yes, you do, because it's fucking funny, but at the end of the day, he just doesn't do that much. Oh, I forgot to mention, this is important. Listen up, viewers. This is very important. Leonardo is actually one of the few candidates in the game that can actually get screwed over by having bad weapon ranks in Radiant Dawn, when 99% of the time that doesn't matter. You gain weapon rank very, very quickly in Radiant Dawn, for the most part, but Leonardo starts with D rank in bows, meaning he can't use the steel bow you get in 1-2 at base. This is genuinely, like, absolutely atrocious. The fact that he can't do good chip damage through the steel bow. Because, like, at the very least, while he doesn't double something, being able to use the steel bow would result in at least, like, tolerable chip damage. But the iron bow isn't strong enough in combination with the strength to actually contribute any meaningful damage from afar. Which means if you want to use the steel bow, I forget how, like, weapon XP works, but I think it's something like 15 to 20 iron bow uses, which is a lot. I feel like I talked about Edward's, like, potential in part 3, and it's like he can potentially do something, because if he gets lucky enough with speed and strength and stuff like that. Leonardo, unless he promotes in one endgame, which will require excessive babying, excessive favoritism, and a lot of resource usage, he won't promote before the end of part 1. And if he doesn't promote by 1E, then he does pretty much nothing in part 3, because there's no flyers outside of Pegasus Knights and 312, which are on the left side of the map, and Leonardo has no business being there, because there's a shit zillion yellow units that are going to deal with them anyway. Yellow units are, like, the actual MVP for the Dawn Brigade in part 3. They're going to be doing most of the work. He can use crossbows. Crossbows can maybe salvage his bad stats, because crossbows just use innate might rather than accessing your stats, which is nice, but at the same time, there's better users for that, like Nolan. Oh yeah, he comes with fucking Cancel for some reason. I didn't talk about Edward's skill of Wrath, but it's not that important. But I will talk about Cancel with Leonardo, because I don't know, again, what fucking bozo at Insys decided to give an archer the skill Cancel. If you're unfamiliar with what Cancel does, I believe it's a skill % chance in combat after you attack to cancel the enemy's counterattack. It's a pretty decent skill. It's not bad. Some characters can actually make decent use of it. But what's the fucking point of giving it to an archer who's going to be attacking from range 99% of the time and won't be receiving any counterattacks? It's genuinely baffling. Like, it feels like Edward should have Cancel and Leonardo should have Wrath. Yeah, Leonardo is an extremely... Yeah, you know, I'll say it. E for extremely. He is extremely weak. He's very, very weak. But he does have some value in part 1. He has good availability. He can snipe Pegasus Knights in 161. That is helpful. Water support's alright. I mean... Affinities in this game are kind of flip-floppy, in that there's no real, like, terrible affinities, but at the end of the day, it's like, if you're not Earth affinity, you're probably not really worth it. Maybe, like, Fire. Fire's okay, too, because it gives you might. Water's okay, it gives you defense. Yeah, no, definitely E tier. He's not F tier. There's a bunch of units that will be in F tier, and I think just by nature of joining as early as he does, I think if he joined, like, even something as simple as 2 chapters later, I think he'd be F tier. But the fact that he joins in Prologue is actually a saving grace, because without that, he basically just wouldn't do anything. I love using him. One of my favorite, like, character designs. I think he looks really, really cool. It's a shame that he just chose the wrong weapon type at birth. Came out of the womb using a bow and arrow. Oh, that's a disappointment. Oh my god, we finally get to a good unit. It's Nolan. Oh, I love Nolan. Nolan is an easy A tier unit. Nolan is a great fucking unit. Nolan is one of my favorite units in Radiant Dawn. In my opinion, he is very, very, very much needed for the Dawn Brigade. Nolan is a unit that I like to think of as very, very reliable, and, like, while he doesn't excel in every area, he's good in every area. Nolan has very all-round bases. Like, I think he has, like, 12 strength, 11 skill, 11 speed, like, 9 defense, decent res, good HP. We'll talk... Actually, let me just mention that now. One of the biggest, like, good parts about Nolan, along with having pretty good all-round bases, is that Nolan is bulky. Nolan can take hits. Nolan has a base HP of, I think, like 32, 31? Like a good base HP. Nolan can take like 3 hits before he dies, which is great. This means he can actually tank an enemy phase and do good counterattack damage because he also has access to the best weapon type in the game with axes, especially when you remove Weapon Triangle. When you remove Weapon Triangle, the only weapon stat that matters at the end of the day, most of the time, is might. Like, hit rates across the board are generally pretty high because skill is generally pretty high, and hit rates in this game are just generally pretty high. So I want might above all else, which axes have in droves. Nolan can act as a great enemy phase tank, with good bulk and good reliability. He does good damage, he has the potential to double, but more importantly, Nolan also has enough speed to not get doubled. At the end of the day, I like to think there's 3 types of units when it comes to speed. There's units who basically double everything, there's units who occasionally double, and then there's units that don't get doubled because they have enough speed to just not get doubled. Nolan will fall into the state of either occasionally doubling or never getting doubled, purely just because he's just fast enough, which is it's lovely. Makes him much tankier, makes him much more reliable. He's just an absolute bulwark for his teammates, for his actual, like, cottage cheese teammates, for his wet noodle teammates. He's so good. People don't talk about, like, how solid Nolan is, because I feel like he kind of gets overshadowed by a lot of other units in the Dawn Brigade, like Jill and Sothe and Zihark. But, like, Nolan is very good. I think he's, out of the 4 scrubs you get from the beginning, I think he's definitely the best one to invest in. Because he also starts at the highest level. He starts at like level 11, I think? Level 11, level like 10 to 12, I forget exactly. Which is great. It means he can absolutely reach Warrior before Part 1 endgame. Completely doable. He gains XP at a reasonably good rate. Because he's high level, the XP reduction doesn't hit him that hard. And there's just a lot of easy ways to get him XP. He joins from 1-1, he joins very early, literally 1 chapter after the rest of the goobers, which is completely fine. Yeah, no, he's just fantastic. He gets, the final personal weapon for the Dawn Brigade is the Tarbos for the Nolan, which, believe it or not, makes him even better, because it's a great personal weapon. It's like a 20 might axe or something. I think it's like 19 or 20 might. It's absurd. It's super high. It gives you +4 defense when you have it equipped, which makes him, again, even more difficult to kill. I forgot to mention this with Leonardo. Leonardo joins with a Draco Shield. It's probably the most he'll ever contribute to the army. It's a +2 defense stat booster. Now, stat boosters in Part 1 are actually very, very crucial, because you need to give them to units in order to get the most value. There's basically 2 units you would consider giving the Draco Shield to, Jill or Nolan. I think it's better on Nolan, personally, just because it gives you much better early game bulk. It makes his base defense like 11, I think, which means he can go from taking around 3 hits to maybe even taking 4 hits. It makes him incredibly, like, difficult to kill. It turns him into an excellent tank. But yes, Nolan is... yeah, he's great. You can make use of the Paragon Scroll if he promotes a little early. Probably a good, like, decent candidate for maybe early promoting if he gets lucky enough levels. I forgot to mention his growths. Nolan also has pretty good growths. Like, you'd maybe expect a unit like this to be a Garcia type or a Dorcas type, where their bases are really solid, but their growths aren't really that much to talk about. But Nolan's growths are actually perfectly good. They're actually great in some aspects. He has, like, weird Myrmidon growths in that he's more skill and speed oriented than strength oriented, which means he can kind of get strength screwed if you get unlucky enough. But for the most part, I think he levels pretty nicely. It's pretty uncommon, in my opinion, that Nolan will get screwed in stats. He's generally gonna grow into something very, very reliable, something that will occasionally double stuff. He'll grow into a good class with Warrior, because Warrior gets access to crossbows. And I'll talk about this now. When you get to Part 3, spoilers, there's a scroll in 1.4, the one with the Lagoose, the one with, like, Happy and the Clappy, the 2 Lagoose brothers, whatever their fucking names is. You can get a Bistro scroll from exploring the sand, like hidden items and whatnot. That Bistro scroll makes it so you deal effective damage to Lagoose, which, spoilers, is most of the enemies you'll fight in Part 3 as the Dawn Brigade. Now, you can do some wacky shit with that, but my favorite thing to do, I recently discovered, is that if you give someone like Nolan the Bistro scroll, it will make a crossbow, which is a weapon that is very unique to Radiant Dawn, in that it doesn't use your stats to calculate damage, it just uses its fat-ass might of like 28 or 32 or however high it is to calculate damage. It will just triple that. So using a 32 might weapon will turn into a 96 might weapon against Lagoos, and you will one-shot them, and they will die. They will fall over, the blood will spill, and you will cackle maniacally as Nolan becomes Death Destroyer of Worlds. Now, this is super, like, gimmicky, and you don't need it as a crossbow, because Lagoos can't attack at 2 range anyway, but it is fucking funny, and that's always a point in my favor. Nolan's remaining this high just because he's very, very, very solid. I think one of the most reliable units in the game. I'm pretty much never disappointed by Nolan. Could he be better? Yes, obviously. He's like a character who has Bs in everything, whereas there are characters in this game who definitely have As in everything. So he's not like the epitome of strength or speed or skill or defense or anything like that, but he's just a very, very good all-round unit. But Nolan is very much a jack of all trades, and he can be reliable as an enemy phase unit, he can be good as a player phase unit, he can be good as just holding a choke point, he can be good at, like, attacking from afar with hand axes. Like, he can just do fucking everything. He's great. Good stat caps. I haven't talked about stat caps yet. There's so many fucking things to talk about in Radiant Dawn. My god. But, like, he doesn't get hindered by a lot of this game's, like, mechanics. Like, he doesn't get hindered by stat caps. He doesn't get hindered by the removal of weapon triangle in hard mode. Reduced XP gain doesn't hurt him that much. He has access to the best weapon type. Like, he's just a very, very solid unit. But, oh yeah! I forgot, he also has the Earth Affinity. He has the best affinity in the game with Earth. Earth Affinity is really, really, really good for supports. A-ranked double Earth support will give you 45 avoid, which is actually enough to make dodge tanking viable. And there are other Earth supports in the Dawn Brigade. They actually have a bunch. They have Volug, they have Zihark, they have Fiona. So there are plenty of ways for Nolan to get a double Earth support and actually become a good dodge tank, even though he doesn't really need to because he's bulky. But, like, he could help Zihark out a lot, because Zihark isn't very bulky. If you can make Zihark a dodge tank, you'll make him even better. So Nolan can act as a great support partner as well. This is what I mean, he's so, like, reliable and versatile. He's one of the most versatile units in the game, despite being a fighter. Like, he's just a dude who wields an axe, and he's so fucking helpful in a variety of different ways. Nolan's definitely an A-tier unit. He's so, like, just, oh, love him to pieces. Absolutely solid. I use the word solid a lot. Like, he is a rock. He is so helpful in so many different areas. A tier, not S tier, because S tier is reserved for, much like the Sacred Stones tier list, S tier is for units that are just kind of no-brainer units, and that you can just use them and turn your brain off. You do need to think with Nolan. He's not invincible, but he is very, very good and very, very tanky. Great unit, A tier, Nolan. Okay, and next up is Laura. Oh my god, where the hell does Laura go? You know, you'd think a unit as simple as a priest, the only just standard priest in the game, would be easier to rank, but I'm having trouble thinking about where Laura's even supposed to go, to be honest. I'm gonna put Laura in D tier, I think? Laura's a very strange unit, because, as I said, she's the only unit, basically in the entire game outside of Herons, who can't do any fighting in part 1. She's a priest, she starts at level 1, which is really, really rough. And while she doesn't get affected by hard mode XP reduction, she will just gain 11 XP through every single heal staff use. The chances of her reaching promotion before 1E, 1 endgame, is basically nil. It's very, very difficult to get her promoted, unless you drown her in bonus experience or, like, purposefully wait, like, in chapters forever so you can heal grind. Again, this tier list is under the impression that you're not doing excessive grinding. So without excessive grinding, there's no way Laura's going to promote before 1 endgame, which means she will probably still be a healer in part 3, just a regular old priest, which isn't terrible because you do need heals, and her staff rank will grow pretty quickly, and you get a physics, so she can do stuff, but, like, she's not doing much. She's just healing. And you don't really get many utility saves across Radiant Dawn, for the most part. Like, you get a torch in 3-6, you get the sleep staff. She can use that, but her base magic isn't very high, and she doesn't grow very quickly. Like, she's just not that great in a lot of regards. I will say it's not like Sacred Stones in that having 2 healers is bad. I think having 2 healers is perfectly good, because you are taking damage a lot. But I will say this is also a point against Laura, is Vulneraries got buffed really, really hard in Radiant Dawn. I think the hardest they've ever been buffed. Vulneraries are really, really strong in Radiant Dawn. Very, very, very good. They've gone from having 3 uses to 8 uses, literally more than double, and instead of healing 10, they heal 20, which is insane. It means you're getting a grand, like, max total of 160 healing from a single Vulnerary, which is insane. That's such good value. And by having such good healing items available, and for relatively cheap, and they're like a reasonable, like a ubiquitous commodity, it makes just someone like Laura worse, because I find a lot of the times, again, since this is an enemy phase game, I'm kind of just comfortable going, alright, I'm just gonna have Nolan chug a vulnerary and he'll take some hits on enemy phase. Rather than, okay, I'll put Laura closer to Nolan who's on the front line and potentially risk like an enemy hitting her. Laura can't take hits. She's made of like legitimate tissue paper. She will die. Her bases are bad. Her growths are actually quite good. Her growths are actually, funnily, some of the highest in the game offensive-wise. I believe she has a 70% magic, skill, and speed growth, which is absolutely hysterical. She is affected by stat caps very, like, heavily, though. I guess we should talk about this now. Stat caps are very, very important in Radiant Dawn for a lot of characters. Some characters don't really care about them. Like, from the characters on screen, Nolan, Edward, and Leonardo don't really care about it. And Micaiah doesn't have to care about it, but her weapon type does. Bishops, like Laura and Rhys, or Rhys, however you pronounce his name, will have to care about stat caps, because for some reason they decided that classes like Mage, Bishop, Paladins, predominantly those two, just have very low stat caps, which means that something like Speed will be capped at, I believe, 23 in Bishop for Laura, which means her absurdly good speed growth won't actually matter if you invest into her, because she'll cap speed really, really early. Which sucks, because all that speed growth is going to waste since she caps it at 23, which is also, like, generally pretty low. It's, like, not enough to double most things. Again, enemies are very, very quick in Radiant Dawn, so having a high speed total is very, very valuable. 23 generally isn't enough. Laura just doesn't do much. I don't think she's an E tier unit, because it is valuable to have a healer, and she can be useful in Part 3, even without any investment. Like, I literally, in my most recent run, I didn't promote her at all. I was still using her in Part 3 to physic occasionally, which was helpful, because you only have 3 chapters for the Dawn Brigade in Part 3. You have 3-6, where you're effectively, it's basically a survive or defend mission. You're in that one spot in the bottom left for most of the map, and so her small physic range doesn't really matter because units will be clumped up. In 3.12, she doesn't do that much. You basically hold 2 choke points. She can heal occasionally, but again, like, vulneraries kind of do okay, and you have yellow units to pick up the slack. I will admit she was helpful in 3 endgame, because while Micaiah can physic and have like a much higher range and generally just way more effectiveness with it, Laura can actually leave the big line that encompasses the map. That's the giant defend line. Micaiah can't go past that. She has to stay up there. She has to stay there because the other day in Soldiers said, no ma'am, you have to stay up here even though you are perfectly capable in combat. Now watch me as I proceed to run into these tigers. She just doesn't do that much. She's a very straightforward unit and very complicated at the same time. Her affinity isn't that great. It isn't that helpful. She won't build support that quickly. She can't be on the front line. Like, she can't really be of much use outside of healing. It's kind of as simple as that. She's not like lower than D tier, because I think she's more valuable than someone like Leonardo, because while Leonardo does just fall off the edge of a cliff and only has one, like, half of a chapter to be useful, Laura can be useful in Part 3 with basically no investment, that's something. The problem is, she also just doesn't really become anything, and from Part 4 onwards, like, you can't use her from Part 4 onwards, because she's 5 move, which is terrible. Like, Part 4 especially likes to have a lot of surprise reinforcements, where it's like, oh, we're just gonna dump like 6 Swordmasters onto your doorstep, and if you have Laura out of position, she's going to die. She just doesn't do very much in Part 4. There's just better options in Part 4. Like, by that point, you will probably have an Arcsage who can heal, Micaiah will still be able to heal, Rhys can heal for free, but he can also fight, and it's generally a bit better. And she can't even get Paragon, she just levels so slowly. Yeah, D tier unit. She can be valuable in certain areas of the game, but she just doesn't really contribute that much, to be honest. Next up is a biggie. It is Sothe. Alright, Sothe. I'm gonna play Sothe in S tier for now, just as like a general assumption. There's no way he's any lower than A tier, but Sothe is obviously an incredibly strong unit in Radiant Dawn. A very, very, very good boy indeed. Well, good man. Good twink. Is he a twink? Whatever, it's fine. Sothe is your pre-promote. He is effectively your quote starting paladin, the equivalent thereof, your Jig and your Oifi, whatever you want to call it. He is a pre-promoted thief, which is a really unique take for having a pre-promoted unit, and thus will join with absolutely absurd bases for his join time. He joins in 1-2, he joins basically at the start of the chapter. He joins on turn 3, but like, that chapter start is so slow anyway, you may as well join at the start of the chapter. Yeah, if you hadn't already realized, Sothe is pretty much the entire, like, he's the linchpin of Part 1. Doing hard mode without Sothe is so much fucking harder, it's actually insane. Because this unit does not care about anything else. He does not give a shit about hard mode's XP reduction because he barely gains any anyway. The weapon triangle doesn't exist for daggers, so he doesn't give a shit about that at all. And you basically never use bonus XP on him anyway. So, all in all, Sothe is barely affected by hard mode, outside of increased speed across the board. And even still, like, he definitely has enough speed to absolutely double every single enemy in part 1. With ease. I want to say, like, the highest speed a unit can get in part 1 is, like, 20. You never face a pre-promoted Swordmaster in part 1. I think there's, like, Myrmidons with capped speed, I want to say. So, like, in order to double every single unit in part 1, you need 24 speed. And I believe Sothe starts with, like, 21? 22? Regardless, Sothe is absolutely strong enough to basically one-round every single unit on his arrival. He can very, very easily just sweep a bunch of enemies. And while dodge tanking isn't that reliable, his evasion is probably good enough to the point where you can maybe leave him in range of a bunch of enemies and still be a-okay. Probably. It's not completely viable, and it gets less viable as the game goes on. Because spoilers, Sothe will not grow that much across the course of the game. While he does get a forced promotion, we'll get to his performance later. Let me talk about his part 1 performance. Sothe is a pre-promoted thief in part 1, meaning that he's the only character in part 1 who has an increased chance, instead of being 100% chance for some fucking reason, because someone at Instance apparently hates thieves, to find hidden items in chapters. And again, if you're unaware, Radiant Dawn has this funny mechanic where basically every single chapter has a hidden item. Most of the time it's garbage like coins, which doesn't really matter most of the time, but in a good chunk of chapters there are actually things that matter. 1-4, for instance, there's a bunch of stuff that matters. There's a Master Seal, there's a Beast Foe Scroll, just stuff like that. I believe in something like 1-9, there's Olivey Grass. You can just get some good stuff. And Sothe, being the only thief in part 1, basically has exclusivity in getting that stuff, which is a big boon for him. Really, really helpful. He's got good utility. He's got good stats. He's got good move. He can open chests. There's a bunch of chests in part 1. Like, Sothe is a unit that can pretty much just do anything and everything in part 1. He can kill. He's got a good 1-2 range option with knives. If you want him to soften enemies up, he can do that because the bronze knife has literally a single point of might. So some enemies just straight up won't die to a bronze knife, which is really nice. If you want him to slaughter his foes before him, if he wants to fucking cull the meek, then he can absolutely do that. Like, Sothe is just absolutely phenomenal. He's even really good at killing Lagoos as well in, like, 1-4, because the game will let you buy a Beast Killer, which is an effective weapon against beasts. It has stupid high might. He will absolutely shred through them like they're made of tissue paper. That's really, really good. What else? I literally don't have any notes on Sothe. Great. Cut this out. Yeah. He even has, like, decent growths as well. He falls more into the Oify category. If you're unfamiliar, an Oify is a Jagan, is a pre-promote with good growth. It's someone who can keep up with the rest of the army, as long as you train him. But honestly, Sothe doesn't really need all that much training. Because, spoilers, we're going to get into his part 3 performance and his part 4 performance. Now, Sothe is an S tier purely just because he is he's absolutely the best unit in part 1. He just does everything and anything you want him to. He's fantastic. He's not unkillable. He can die, but he's very difficult to kill. His bulk is good. His offense is good. His dodging is good, his move is good, like everything about him is good. When you get to part 3, this is where Sothe's problems start to glimmer in the light a bit, so to say. Part 3 only has 3 chapters, so there's not a lot of XP for Sothe to gain, and when you get to part 3, there is a big jump in stats. The main enemy that you're going to be fighting, for the most part, is Lagoos. Primarily Tiger Lagoos. Tiger Lagoos fucking hurt. They hit like trucks. And Sothe's bulk isn't that good. It's not very good. Like, it's good for part 1, because enemies don't hit that hard, and just general, like, weak early game enemies. When you get to part 3, Tiger Lagoos are actually just going to bite into you, and then there will be a chunk of you missing. You will wonder why you got a game over, because you left Sothe on enemy phase and thought, oh, he's invincible from his part 1 performance, and then he gets 2-shot by tigers. And this means that Sothe loses his great enemy phase potential from part 1. A lot of his bulk and dodging is basically just completely gone. Also, enemies are much faster across the board. He'll probably still double tigers even with his base speed, but doubling something like cats is out the window. He will not double cats. Now, he does have the Beast Killer, which is obviously very good against Lagoos. Like, I just didn't really have a use for Sothe in part 3 outside of just hidden items and moving and giving Micaiah a support or what have you. I just didn't have a use for him because I couldn't leave him anywhere on enemy phase, because he will just die. Like, I could leave my promoted Nolan on enemy phase because he had Tarvos and he had a big defense pool. He could survive. Nolan was actually a fucking Doomslayer in my most recent part 3. I gave him Beast Foe and he just fucking slaughtered everything. He slaughtered them like animals because they were fucking filthy subhumans. Yeah, no, Sothe just loses a lot of his value in part 3 because he stops doubling, he's no longer bulky, he can still hit reasonably hard, but like his stats are nowhere near as impressive as they once were. He'll start gaining XP normally, like the rest of the Dawn Brigade, which can be nice. Levels can help him, but when you get to part 3, you'll also start to realize that Rogue is not as good as a class as it originally seemed. While it has high move and having innate 1-2 range with something like knives is nice, you begin to realize that daggers are a really, really crappy weapon type. They are pretty weak across the board with mostly low might and like pretty average accuracy. Like knives especially just are absolutely pitiful for damage. And once you start facing high defense enemies like generals and halberdiers and tiger lagoos, you just begin to realize that knives are just not worth it in the long run. Rogue also has pretty like iffy caps. Speed and skill are like fine, but their strength cap is I think 22, 23. It's very low. It's low to the point where it really cripples any like potential damage output from Sothe. Again, similar to Laura, like his strength growth is perfectly good. His growth is all perfectly good, but again, they just kind of get screwed over by the fact that he won't be allowed to have a stat grow past a certain point until he gets his force promotion in part 4, which we also need to talk about. Sothe in part 4 is bad. He is flat out bad. He is one of the weakest units because Sothe will not grow enough from part 3 to part 4 unless you absolutely just spoon feed him XP, which is a pretty difficult thing to do because of how squishy he is. I spent no Canto or anything. Enemies in part 4, I didn't realize this until my most recent playthrough. Like, it's been a while since I played through Radiant Dawn. I played through the game like a week ago since recording, and I did not realize just how fucking strong part 4 enemies are. Like, especially once you get to something like Endgame, and like Sword Masters are like just casually carrying around 32 speed. No one outside of like a fucking cat speed Mia is doubling these fuckers. Like, you think Sothe is gonna double them? No, of course not. He's gonna get doubled and die. Predominantly, like, the main enemy type you're gonna face in part 4 is, like, Cavs and Generals, I find. Like, most of the time. And they're very, very bulky. Sothe just doesn't do anything of value in combat there, and he isn't tanky, and he can't dodge tank. Outside of finding hidden items, he basically does nothing in part 4. Which, you know what? I'll give him credit. He has thief utility. I didn't even mention that, yeah, he can steal items, and there are stealables. Like, he can steal the Discipline Scroll in 1-3, which is very valuable. Overall, part 1, Sothe is absolutely the best unit in the game, because he has great availability, he just does everything in part 1, and then he gets part 3, and he's gone from absolutely basically a perfect unit to a very average, maybe almost mediocre unit. Like, just to summarize, part 1 Sothe is S tier 100%, part 3 Sothe is probably like B, C tier, and then part 4 Sothe is E tier, because he's just a thief. He basically contributes nothing to combat. And you're forced to bring him into the tower, which absolutely blows. Yeah, Sothe is one of the, like, he's the unit that drops off really, really hard, but I think his part 1 performance alone is enough to place him in S tier. Oh, is it though? Is it enough to place him in S tier? I don't think it is. No, it's not. You know what? It's not. I'm actually placing him in A tier. I'm gonna put him above Nolan, because he is, at the very least, better than Nolan, 100%. But I think his, like, part 3 and part 4 performance is genuinely just so, like, middling to just flat out bad that it's not enough to place him in S tier. Because very few characters are like this, where they fall off so hard that, like, Sothe just dies in part 4. He doesn't do anything. He does no damage, he can't fight at all, he has no bulk, and he can't dodge tank. Yeah, I'm gonna place him in A tier. Extremely strong original performance, but as the game goes on, he just gets gradually less and less useful. And next up, we get a non-Dawn Brigade unit. We get the first Path of Radiance character, Ilyana. Where the hell does Ilyana go? For reference, I'm also not going to include any transfers. Units will not be getting just random stat increases from having transferred save data from Path of Radiance over to Radiant Dawn. Because that can really fuck up balancing in a lot of cases, and it basically makes... I need to do like a separate tier list. But I will say that, just off the record, Ilyana with transfers is actually very good. That being said, Ilyana without transfers is not very good, and I think I'm gonna place her in... I think I'm gonna start with C tier? Maybe move her down to D tier. We'll see. For now, I'm gonna place her in C tier. Ilyana is a very interesting unit, despite being the least interesting character in Tellius, because her entire personality is me hungry. Ilyana is kind of interesting to talk about. because she's the first Path of Radiance unit she gets. She's a Thunder Mage with very okay bases. She has like 12 magic, 12 speed. Like across the board, she's very average. For that point of the game, it's like, she helps out. Like she starts with Thunder and L Thunder. Thunder magic is unfortunately very, very weak in or not even in Tellius. It's fine in Path of Radiance. In Radiant Dawn, they nerfed it to hell. Its accuracy is really iffy and its damage is just flat out bad. But I find that with Ilyana, she's always like just shy of being good. Like she's just shy of doubling, or like just shy of one rounding. Like she's literally like 1 damage off of one rounding something, or 1 speed off of doubling something. And it's really, really frustrating. And I think Ilyana is really, really dependent on getting a good first level in order to be good. I think if she gets a shitty first level, she's a lot like Edward in a way. It's like, if you don't get magic speed on that first level, you've immediately become useless. And her growths are not good. No, okay, I did not realize her growths were this poor. Oh wow, they're really not good. A 30% speed growth. Oh, I'm gonna puke. Alright, never mind. She's going back. She's going down to D tier.
I'm going down to D tier.
Yeah, no, Ilyana is... Alright, is she C tier? I don't fucking know. We're gonna just have this Schrodinger's unit where I have no idea where she's supposed to go. I'm putting her down to D tier. Ilyana's growths are really bad. Like, they're actually really fucking bad. A 30% speed growth is embarrassing. That's slower than Leonardo and Micaiah. I can't in good faith place her in C tier with growths like that. Because with such average bases, a weak weapon type, a really shitty class with Sage, because Sage stat caps are absolutely horrendous. They are straight up god-awful. Their speed cap is like 24 or something. Like, she probably won't cap speed on average, but it doesn't matter. But actually, maybe that's a point in her favor, because she's probably not going to cap speed anyway. She comes at a point where magic is, like, fine, because enemies don't have that much res, but as the game goes on, mages become less and less useful, because res just gets higher and higher. In a lot of Fire Emblems, res tends to be on the lower end for enemies, but in Radiant Dawn, like, res is actually, like, a pretty competent stat for most enemies. So she just loses a lot of value. And they also kind of, I guess this is kind of a nerf, it's kind of more of a change. Mages no longer get staves upon getting to Sage. They get it upon getting to their 3rd tier class, Archsage, however you want to pronounce it. And Archsage also gives them access to Flare and all that garbage, but like more importantly, they get access to staves. So not having staff utility until your 3rd tier class is really, really rough. Like maybe she could do something with that. I don't know. That's just better mages. They're also just better mages. Like Ilyana's probably the weakest mage in the game because, well, she has good availability. I want to say she actually has like the best availability in the game as a unit. Now that I think about it, I think Ilyana does actually have the best availability in the game. She has most of part 1 and most of part 3. I will actually mention this. Ilyana has the interesting privilege of effectively being a moving convoy if you want to use her. Now, this isn't as helpful as it might sound, but Ilyana can transfer items from the Dawn Brigade over to the Grail Mercenaries, because she will join them from 3-2 onwards, and she will join with all of her inventory from the Dawn Brigade chapters. Now, that being said, it's far less helpful than it sounds, because, in my opinion, perhaps I'm wrong on this, perhaps the community is just going to absolutely shun me for this disagreeable opinion. The Grail Mercs do not need any items, because, spoilers, the Grail Mercs pretty much across the board are very, very strong, especially when compared to the Dawn Brigade. Like, looking at the units right here on my screen right now, there are literally 2 units I would consider strong, Sothe and Nolan, one of which falls off really hard in late game. So I don't think the Grail Mercs really need that much, so I don't really value Ilyana's ability to transfer items from Dayan over to the Grail Mercenaries. I don't consider it to be that helpful for the most part. It's a neat thing you can do. Yeah, Ilyana's actually very straightforward in a lot of ways. While she has, like, excellent availability and stuff like that, Thunder is a pretty weak weapon to... I guess Thunder is effective against dragons, and in 4 Endgame 3, you face exclusively dragons. So she could use the Rex Bolt and, like, do nice damage. It's not that helpful. I don't know. The dragons in 4 Endgame 3 aren't that tough. Like, they hit hard, but they're not that dangerous for the most part. It's like, I feel like that's really just Ilyana as a whole. It's just, She's like, okay. There are definitely worse units. If you train her, she'll probably be, like, fine. I will say, like, in Radiant Dawn, you can basically use everyone. Every single unit in Radiant Dawn is viable on hard mode. I've used Lyre and Kaiser on hard mode. They're not good, obviously, but they're, like, completely usable. I don't know why she has a 45% strength growth. It's so, like, jarring. Because, like, it would make sense if they wanted that to be, like, her way to compensate for having shitty speed. But it isn't, because her strength at base is actually really good. She doesn't get slowed down by L Thunder or Thunder at all. So why does she have a good strength growth? It's completely pointless. She just has too many faults. Her pros are good availability and like some utility in early game for just being a reasonable source of damage. But overall, she just doesn't really fare that well into the late game just because she doesn't level very well and she's just She's just, again, very, very D tier, Ilyana. Okay, and next up is... Oh, cool. This is an interesting unit. A unit I actually really, really like. And a unit I think is still, like, hotly debated, in my opinion, on whether he's actually good. It's Aran, or Aran. I'm going to place Aran... Where the hell does Aran go? This is an interesting one. I'm going to place Aran in C tier. I think Aran is a very, very middle-of-the-pack unit. I see a lot of people say, like, oh, you just need to invest in Aran. He can level really, really nicely due to his amazing offensive growth and his fucking power-packed defense growth. And then, like, the other half's like, oh, Aran does nothing. He gets doubled by everything. His bases are poopy. He joins at a bad time. Oh, don't care. Didn't laugh. Not funny. Whereas I think Aran is very much like, yeah, he's alright. He's certainly not a bad unit, but he's definitely not a very good one either. Aran is very, very straightforward. There is nothing complicated about Aran. He is a soldier. He joins with pretty alright bases across the board. He's very kind of similar to Nolan in a way. Actually, I will say, while his like strength, speed, skill, and defense are like pretty good for a level 7 soldier, max HP of 24 is actually quite poor. And you will start to notice this on the assumption that you're actually leveling Aran. We'll get to his growth rates. His HP growth is only 50%, which might seem okay from the get-go, but HP in general usually has a higher percentage growth than other stats, because it's a stat that, it's like a dump stat. You want a lot of points into it before you get any real value. So not having a high HP growth is actually pretty bad. Now, in terms of his other growths, he's very, very flip-floppy. He is absolutely bipolar when it comes to his growth rates. Aran has a 75% strength growth, a 75% skill growth, and a 70% defense growth. This is phenomenal. There is a cat at my window. Get out of here. I'm recording. What are you doing? What are you doing, you ungrateful little ingrate? Get out of here. Skadoodle! Now, having a 75% strength growth, having 70 plus growths in anything is fantastic. And this means Aran will grow very, very simply. It means his level ups for the most part will be strength, skill, defense. And on occasion, he'll get HP, speed, and maybe res or luck. This is a mixed bag. Obviously, getting high strength, skill, and defense is lovely. It makes Aran into a very, very bulky unit. He can actually just take a bunch of physical hits. And it means he also hits like a fucking truck. Like, I found this very much to be the case in my most recent playthrough. I tried to use everyone in the Dawn Brigade just to get a feel for how they work, because it's been so long since I played the game. And Aran for me was the unit that was just absolutely hitting the hardest. He capped strength, he capped skill, he capped defense before promotion, which was lovely. You know what he didn't cap? He didn't cap speed. He wasn't even fucking close. Not even close. He had like 14 speed before promotion, and I think that's actually like kind of blessed, because Aran's speed growth is 35%. This is such a fucking common feature among the Dawn Brigade, is that they have really shitty speed growths for the most part. Or really good ones. There's no in between. There's no like just average speed growth. Aran's biggest issue is, yes, his low speed is really, really, really rough. It's low to the point where he will actually just get consistently doubled by things, which is really, really bad. If you're getting consistently doubled by things, it means your really, really good bulk won't actually matter for some characters. Like, on the off chance, I don't think this will happen, but on the off chance, let's say Aran gets doubled by a tiger, he's gonna get absolutely shredded. Let's say Aran, on the off chance, gets doubled by a mage. He's fucking dead. The Aran fucking dies. He cannot tolerate magic in his presence, because his res at base is absolutely atrocious. It may as well be 0. I think it is 0, actually. It's like 1 or 2. Now, he can be a good enemy phase unit, and this is nice in an enemy phase focused game, but ultimately, I find that Aran is very much a case of you're only going to use him if you want to use him. He is not like a unit that you will realize is good, per se. Like, you'll use a unit like Zihark right away, because you think, ooh, these bases are really good. Or you'll use a unit like, I don't know, like any of the royals. You'll know they're good right away. Aran is not good right away. He doesn't do very much damage. His weapon type is okay with lances, but like for the most part, it's just kind of so-so. He doesn't excel in any area. His HP, starting HP is bad, his starting res is bad, he doesn't double anything at base, he will start to get doubled eventually unless he gets super speed blast. His affinity is fine, but it's nothing outstanding. Aran is just a very average unit, and that's fine. I think it completely matches his character of just being Joe Schmo soldier. I also think, like, unlike Edward, who has a very good early game and then just slowly peters out, Aran is pretty much the same throughout the entire game. That I like, unless you give him favoritism, like through boosters or excessive grinding or whatnot, I find that Aran doesn't really change. Like, he's gonna be a very stable unit. Outside of the fact that he probably will start to get doubled eventually, which is very unfortunate. You can kind of bonus experience abuse him. I should talk about bonus experience abuse. Again, for those uninitiated, bonus XP is a mechanic in Radiant Dawn and Path of Radiance. In Radiant Dawn, it is effectively a way to grant XP to units outside of combat in the My Base simulator, whatever you want to call it, My Special Barbie House. You give them XP to give them a level, and that level will always give them 3 stats, regardless of what happens. Now, the growths, it's more likely to go towards stats that have high growths. Like for Aran, if you gave him a bonus XP level when none of his stats were capped, you'd likely get strength, skill, defense. Now, once those stats are capped, you can start to abuse this, because you will always get 3 stats if you can, meaning that if you've got the stats that are likely to be capped early, you can give bonus XP to those characters to try and get stats they otherwise wouldn't get. Like with Aran, you can try and get some speed and res and HP. And he is a very good candidate for this, because I find that he does just cap strength, skill, and defense pretty frequently. He kind of just faces the same problems as the other Dawn Brigade members in that, yeah, he's unpromoted, so he can't use Paragon for the most part. His level isn't that high, so he can potentially promote before the end of part 1, but it's maybe a little bit difficult. He'll require a little bit of babying. He's just, yeah, no, he's just, like, he's fine. There's nothing wrong with this unit, per se. He's just very middle of the road. He can be good, but he can also be bad. He's not as XP hungry as Edward, but he definitely does still need resources. He's definitely a C tier unit. He's not D tier, because he can be good if you invest in him. It's just a case, it's really just a question of whether you want to or not. It is good to, like, generally invest in a couple of units in the Dawn Brigade for the long haul, because you will need strong units and stuff like 313, and Aran is good. He's a good candidate. I'd say he's better than Edward in that regard, just because Aran can become super bulky, and bulk is really, really good in enemy phase focused games. Yeah, no, he's fine. I feel like there's nothing really more to say about Aran. He's a very, very simple unit. Speed bad, defense good. Moving on. C tier. Thanks, Aran. Okay, who's after Aran? Oh, it's her. Oh, Jesus Christ. You know what the best part of Radiant Dawn is? When I say, oh, it's her, I could be referring to like 5 different units, and they'd all qualify as like the quote worst unit in the game. Here's one of the worst units in the game. It's Meg. Meg is an F tier unit. There's like, okay, if you're familiar with Radiant Dawn in any way, you're probably familiar with Meg. She's a pretty famous, like, meme unit up there with, like, Gwendolyn and, like, Bartrey, fucking Amelia, just units like that. And that Meg is bad. Comically bad. Like, Leonardo is bad, but I wouldn't even say he's comically bad. He's just very, very weak. Meg is comically fucking terrible. For a variety of different reasons. I don't think there's a single thing that Meg does well, just to put it bluntly. At least Leonardo has a tiny little niche in 161, and joins with a Draco Shield, which is a nice addition. Meg, on the other hand, is a level 3, maybe level 4 Armonite, joining from 1-4, around halfway through the part, and to put it just completely straightforward, she doesn't do anything. For starters, Meg's bases are absolutely abhorrent. Every single stat, you know what? Every single stat is bad. Her defense is bad, her speed is bad, her strength is awful, her skill is not good. Like, everything about this character is bad. On her joining chapter, 1-4 is an especially tough joining chapter because it's filled with Lagoos, and Lagoos generally hit really, like, the entire purpose of Lagoos is to hit you hard on enemy phase. They don't really do much from player phase, but they'll do a good chunk of damage. And Meg cannot take hits, despite being a fucking Armonite! You'd think maybe the girl who's coated in Kevlar and, like, the finest steel in all of Tellius would be able to take a hit, but nope! And even, like, that's not even to say, like, Armonites in general, like, oh, Armonite's poopy. Like, Armonites in this game are actually pretty alright. I think generals, like, characters like Brom and Gatry are actually kind of underrated in Radiant Dawn. They're actually pretty alright. I think Gatry especially is actually, like, a pretty good unit. So the fact that Meg is bad is not due to her class, although her class is kind of bad, because it's 5 move in a game where movement I'd say in part 1, movement isn't super important, but it is obviously always important, and she can fall behind, which isn't good, because she's falling behind in every other aspect as well. She's falling behind in XP, in use, and in general utility, because spoilers, she has none. In fact, I will say this, one of Meg's best features is, I guess she does technically join with something useful. She joins with the Fortune skill, which is a skill that just prevents you from taking crits entirely. Which in theory is good, because getting hit by 1% crits never feels good. But this is completely useless on Meg, because one of Meg's best features is her incredibly good luck. It's actually one of the few stats that she is likely to cap. Now, you can just remove this from Meg, because they let you play around with skills pretty freely in Radiant Dawn, which is actually one of the biggest improvements from Path of Radiance in my opinion. And you can just remove this skill and fucking sell it, because Fortune is pointless, because basically every single unit in this game has good luck. And Fortune is worth 3,000 gold, which is honestly pretty appreciated. That's basically a forged weapon by itself. So that's nice. Meg effectively joins with 3,000 extra gold. Despite being an Armor Knight, her weight is actually surprisingly low, so I don't think she can shove units like Nolan or Aran. I think she can shove like Edward and Leonardo and all the mages, and maybe Sothe, but that's kind of it. Shove utility is always nice, but let's be real. You want to use Meg because she's funny. She a funny unit. She's a sword armor. She's an Armor Knight stuck with arguably the worst weapon type in the game, maybe even more so than bows, but like bows get the double bow eventually, and the double bow is like beyond cracked. What does she have for growths? I actually don't remember Meg's growths. Oh god! Here I am looking at them again for the first time. Meg's growths are really, really wrong. Not even bad, they're just wrong. Her highest growths are speed, luck, and resistance. As an Armor Knight, I get that's kind of like, she's supposed to be like a joke character. She's supposed to be like, oh, she's an Armor Knight, but she's not really an Armor Knight, or she's quick and has good res. It's like, yeah, that's kooky and great, but at the same time, like, Meg's starting speed is so fucking bad that it doesn't matter if she gets like 5 speed levels in a row, she isn't going to double anything. And if she does double anything, she's not going to do any damage because swords have shit all for might, and her strength growth is awful. Oh god. What do you talk about with this unit, you know? Like, she's fucking obviously it's like the thing of like, oh, Nolan or like Sothe is obviously good, but Meg is obviously terrible. Like, even when I was a wee babby playing this game at like fucking 6 years old or wherever I was when I like learned how to smoke cigarettes, like, I knew as soon as I got Meg, it's like, wee golly gee whiz, this unit's fucking turbo trash. And I knew, and I never used this unit. Even when I played on my first fucking playthrough, and I was using Leonardo, I'm like, wow, Leonardo's great, he can shoot a bad guy real good. I knew Meg was terrible. Just don't fucking touch her. Back to her growth for a little bit. On average, Meg will level strength every 3 levels, and defense every 3 levels, because her defense growth is absolutely abhorrent as well. Meaning that in 9 levels, she will gain 3 points of strength and defense on average. Meaning that, oh god, that's so terrible. It means she both won't have like an enemy phase in an enemy phase focused game. As a fucking Armor Knight, you'd hope they would have an enemy phase. Like, Brom has an enemy phase. Brom and Gatry are both great enemy phase units, because they're fucking bulky as hell. They're absolutely tanky. Meg is not tanky in any way. Like, she's an Armor Knight without any of the, like, good parts of an Armor Knight. It's so just, ugh. She grows poorly, her bases are poor, her class is fine. Like, this is a game where Armor Knights are mostly okay, but it's just not good enough. She will fall behind. Wind Edge is a fine 1-2 range option, but they're kind of crappy. She gets Lancers upon promotion. Whippy, it's E rank, so she has to fucking grind that shit. It's a rough life for Meg. It's a rough life being the traditionally unattractive character in Fire Emblem. There's only so many ways I can say that Meg is not good. F tier. She's a for fun unit. She is very fun to use, I will admit. She is a very funny unit. And getting her to Marshal is genuinely an absolute blast to do. Meg is absolutely an F tier unit. And is she the worst unit in the Dawn Brigade? She's not the weakest unit in the game. That's the funniest part. Is you would assume that this, like, 5-move Armor Knight with terrible bases, terrible growths, and just all-round just being awful, would be the weakest unit in the game. But she's not, in my opinion. That's the crazy part. That's the wackiest part of Radiant Dawn, is that she's not even the weakest unit in the game. She is the F tier though. Absolute booty butt cheeks. Thanks, Meg. Thank you for giving me a steel sword and 3,000 gold. That's really appreciated. And next up, ooh, a good unit. Okay, cool. I like Volug a lot. Volug is an A tier unit. Volug is really, really cool. I'm a big fan of Volug. Big fan of my wolf boy. My big fan of my illiterate wolf boy. Volug is very, very, very straightforward. Do not need to talk about Volug for very long. He's very, very similar to Sothe in a way, because he's really, really, really good in part 1, and then average in part 3, and then completely garbage in part 4. Volug is effectively a pre-promote. He's not a pre-promote in the sense that he joins pre-promoted, but he's a very, very high level Lagoose. Or he's not even very, very high level, he's like level 16 or something. The point is, his bases are very, very high for his join time. In the chapter he joins, in 1.5, Volug is he's force deployed for all of part 1, and he will basically be able to one-round every single enemy in 1.5, and will consistently round like a good chunk of enemies after that. He doesn't one-round everything, he doesn't even double, like, everything, but he's very, very good in combat. I'd like to think of Volug as a 9-move point-and-click delete button in a lot of cases. He is a, I need this enemy to die, kill them now. Kill them now, Volug, send them to the wolf chamber. This is incredible. Obviously, just having a way to delete enemies on player phase is always going to be valuable, like, regardless of the situation. And he has a good enemy phase too, despite being locked to 1 range. And he's mostly, like, invincible. Like, obviously he's not invincible. He has a great HP total, his stats are really, really good. He maintains his transformed Lagoose form due to Wild Heart, which halves his stats, but allows him to remain perpetually transformed, which is great in part 1. Remove that shit from part 3 onwards, because he needs stats from part 3 onwards. He cannot just stay as a half boy. And yeah, outside of like sticking him next to a couple of fire mages, because fire mages have effective damage against Lagoose and Radiant Dawn, he's very, very just bulky and difficult to kill. Again, one of the few units he can maybe reliably dodge tank. Oh, he also has access to the best affinity in the game with Earth, similar to Nolan. Fun fact, in my most recent playthrough, I decided, like, oh, what if I just invested into Volug from part 3 onwards? Like, I'll give him Paragon, because he doesn't gain any XP in part 1, he gains 1, because he's so over-leveled at that point, but from part 3 he just starts getting normal XP. So, I gave him an Earth support with Fiona, who I was also using. I gave them double Earth support, and they ended up getting plus 45 Avoid, and they both became fucking untouchable. Which was really neat, to see 2 units who are supposed to be really, really weak in the late game actually just completely demolish the late game. Well, demolish is an exaggeration, because all the enemies would just target Volug with 1-2 range, with magic or javelins or bows or what have you, and he just have to sit there and take it like a little baby, which sucks, but at the very least, he had a supportive waifu. But yeah, Volug is very, very simple. He's invaluable in part 1. Like Sothe, just absolutely demolishes people in combat. But from part 3 onwards, he falls off really, really hard because he hasn't gained... He basically gains no stats from part 1 because of how over-leveled he is. He gains basically no experience. Enemies are much stronger in part 3 and they hit much harder. And he will just, like... He doubles most things in part 1. He basically doubles almost nothing in part 3, unless you if you go full like Wild Heart with him in part 3, which I think is a mistake because you lose so many stats. He will not double anything, and he is liable to get doubled by stuff like Cat Lagoose. But if you just make him regularly transformed, he can actually do some work. But come part 4, he will just completely fall off unless you have done what I did in my most recent playthrough and babied him all to shit. Which, while funny, probably isn't the best use of your resources. Again, that being said, due to having just such a really good early game in part 1, I think Volug is an easy A tier unit. Just such high move in the early game it's absolutely just, it's so helpful. Just seeing an enemy that could potentially be a threat in the distance and going, I need them to perish as soon as possible. I'm sending my attack dog after them. Unleash the fucking hounds. Murder at will. Just being able to do that is so helpful. Just a really solid unit. And it gets, like, just having a free deployment slot means that you are basically going to have to use him. He is force deployed for all of part 1. Well, not, as soon as he joins in part 1. So, may as well use the Wolf Boy. He's really good. Speaking of solid units, it's time to talk about everyone's favorite redhead. Scrimir. No, we'll get to him. That's my favorite redhead. Jillian! Where does Jill go? I'm gonna place Jill in A tier for now. I don't think there's any question on her being any lower than A tier. It's just a question of whether she goes into S tier or not. I think people really overrate Jill in a lot of ways. Now let me elaborate on that. Jill is a very good unit. She is a flyer in a game where flyers are very good, even though they've absolutely nerfed the shit out of calves in a lot of ways. Flyers get to remain supreme because, I don't know, someone at Incest really likes their fucking flying ponies for some reason. But she's even better in Radiant Dawn because she gets a Wyvern mount, and Wyverns are fucking busted in Radiant Dawn, because for some reason, some absolute brainiac at Incest decided, hey, what if Wyverns didn't have their archery weakness anymore? So they just get to fly around dominating the battlefield. Even though you only get 2 of them, they're both, like, at bare minimum A tier. And we'll get to Har. He's coming up. I can see him in the fucking roster tier list, in the all-star roster tier list. Gee willikers, I wonder where Har is going to go. Jill is really strong. Wyverns are really tough and bulky and formidable to face. Their only weakness is Thunder Mages, and Thunder sucks shit, so it's not even that bad to deal with. And Jill also has great res. Jill has pretty okay bases across the board. They're actually not that great for the most part. They're like okay. She can double like an occasional thing at base, I think, but the area where Jill shines is when she grows, and she is a unit that can snowball out of control. Much like how I mentioned Edward can snowball out of control on lower difficulties because he just gets so much XP, Jill is the hard mode snowballer. Jill is absolutely the best candidate for all of your investments and for all of your babying. Because Jill has very good growths and is, like, just shy of her, in her join, like, chapter in 1.6, she's, like, just shy of doubling a bunch of these. She's kind of like Ilyana. It's like, oh, I'm 2 speed off of doubling. Oh, I'm getting weighed down by 2 points of speed from the steel axe that I can't use quite as efficiently as I'd like. Guess what? An energy drop will fix that. Because an energy drop on Jill will give her effectively 2 points of strength and 2 points of speed, which is insane value. Giving a energy drop to Jill makes her much more reliable at killing things, and just start setting up the snowball out of control sequence, because Jill is primarily oriented towards speed. And like, I find that Jill is, much like how I mentioned that a lot of units, there's like 3 types of units. There's consistent doublers, occasional doublers, and never doublers. Jill starts as one of those occasional doublers, but I feel like if you invest hard enough into her, she will just become a frequent doubler. She will basically just double everything, and axes have such high might, and her strength is like good enough, and her other stats are also like good enough, to the point where she can just become an absolute, like, progenitor of death. That's not how you use progenitor, it's fine. She's also a great candidate for the Seraph Robe, because that extra 7 HP will help her kind of lackluster base of, like, I think 25, 26. It's actually pretty low. Health totals in general for a lot of characters are surprisingly low in Radiant Dawn. Now, with all these investments and the fact that if you give this coughing baby all of these resources, she will turn into the coughing hydrogen bomb, why is she not an S tier? Well, S tier is basically reserved for units that require almost no investment and will just murder everything right off the bat. Like, S tier, spoilers, is for units like Ha. Ha is Jill, but better in almost every way. Not quite every way, but almost every way. Ha starts out absurd, Jill does not start out absurd. Jill does need some babying. Not much babying, I will admit. She doesn't need much babying to get going. She's like kind of like Vanessa in Sacred Stones. Vanessa starts out very weak, but she will get very, very strong very, very quickly should you choose to baby her. Jill is kind of the same. They're both really good candidates for stat boosters, and they're both really, really good candidates for stuff like just feeding XP, bonus XP is pretty good on her. It's really, really ideal to get her to tier 2 class, I forget what it's called, it's like Draco Master or something, Draco Lord, before the end of part 1, because she will just be so helpful in part 3, because being a flyer in those chapters is really, really, really valuable. Just being able to freely maneuver around swamps and like mountains it's incredible. Yeah. No, Jill, I don't think she's S tier purely because she does require some babying. And at the end of the day, that is favoritism. And while I do agree that she is one of the best candidates for said favoritism, it is still favoritism. And if I need to invest quite heavily in this unit in order to get her going, is she really S tier? I don't think so. I will say, like, let me just rearrange this. She's better than Nolan and Volug. I'd say she's better than Sothe as well. Also, her availability is kind of iffy. Like, she's available for, like, half of part 1, and then all of the Dawn Brigade chapters in part 3. You can recruit her to the Grail Mercs if you really want to train her. I think she's more valuable in the Dawn Brigade because you fucking need every single good unit you can get. But you can do that if you really want to train her. She's really, really helpful in part 4, especially on stuff like the desert map. She's a very, very good unit, and she's just shy of being a fantastic, like, basically perfect unit. Like, I can't really think of any weaknesses for her outside of her kind of iffy start and the fact that, yeah, she does require a fair amount of babying before she gets going. She's not completely invincible like a certain other Wyvern Knight, I will say that. She can die. Like, she has reasonable defense and reasonable res, but she can still die. She's not invincible. Certain units in this game are basically invincible. Again, a certain other Wyvern Knight is virtually fucking unkillable, and like a certain Lord is also basically unkillable, and certain Lagoose Royals don't understand what it means to hit 0 HP, but Jill absolutely can just die. And this sucks, to be honest. It sucks that she is just shy of it. A very good unit, but I think she's just shy of S tier. And another member of the Tauroneo squad is the titular character himself, Tauroneo. Oh, the mutton chops, man. I already mentioned Tauroneo, and I'm not entirely sure where to place him. I think I'm gonna place him in D tier. I think I'm gonna just place him in D tier right off the bat. He might go up to C tier. I've already moved a bunch of characters around already, but I think Tauroneo is a D tier unit for the main reason of availability, and I think this is the first case where availability really screws over a character. Tauroneo, upon his arrival, is the strongest unit in your army. To the point where he is, like, I talked about how Sothe and Volug are really, really difficult to kill. Tauroneo is unironically impossible to kill in part 1. Like, he may as well have, like, the Avil thing from Thrashia, where it's, like, a secret little status effect where it's like, yeah, they're invincible. Tauroneo's, like, base stats for part 1 are absolutely obscene. He will double everything, he will kill everything, he will survive everything. You can solo all of Chapter 6 with Tauroneo if you really want to. Again, complete waste of XP, but you totally could. And you might think, whoa, a unit like that in part 1, he must be really, really good as the game goes on. Okay, let's talk about availability. Tauroneo has awful availability. Tauroneo is available for Chapter 6 of part 1, and that's it. That's literally it. That's unironically all he's fucking available for. You get him for 2 chapters, because Chapter 6 is really 2 chapters, but 2 halves of a chapter, effectively. In 7, he's unavailable, in 8, he's unavailable, in 9, he's unavailable, and in an endgame, he's unavailable. Unavailable for all of Part 2, unavailable for most of Part 3. He is available for 2 chapters in Part 3, and by that point, the rest of the game has caught up with him. He's still actually pretty good in Part 3, like, his stats are, like, pretty good. They're not, like, fantastic. He has stopped doubling everything, but he's still, like, doing a good chunk of damage. And he's still reasonably bulky. Like, he's basically the candidate you use for blocking the ledges on the left side of the map. And then in 3 endgame, he can maybe do some stuff. I find that in Part 3 and Part 4 onwards, like, the more I look at Tauroneo's bases, they're actually not that great. His biggest weakness is that he only has 21 defense as a general, which is really, really low. Like, it's actually really a problem, because his speed is low enough to the point where he can get doubled by a good amount of things, and I find that he's just nowhere near as durable as I originally anticipated. Do we need to talk about his growths? Like, do they matter? Tauroneo is a unit that doesn't really gain that much experience. Like, he'll gain nothing in Part 1, and then 3 he might gain, like, 1 level. I don't even really remember what his growths are. They're, like, really, like, fine all-round growth. There's nothing particularly terrible, but it doesn't really matter. He's very much a case of bases over growths. Like, he's not a real unit you use in the long term. He can be okay in Part 4. I believe he's forced into the Elincia army, if I remember correctly, I think, which doesn't really hinder him too much. He can be kind of useful in 4-2. 4-5 would be rough, because it's mostly a swamp map, and you need mobility in order to end that chapter as quickly as fucking possible, because 4-5 is agony. Yeah, he just doesn't really scale that hard, and he's only available for, I'm going to count the chapters, I'm counting Chapter 6 as 2 chapters. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's available for 4 chapters before Part 4, which is embarrassing. Like, outside of a couple other characters, I want to say that's some of the lowest availability in the game. Again, I mentioned this at the very start. Just not being available absolutely cripples your usability, because good stats don't matter if the good stats aren't available half the time. More than half the time. Like 80% of the time. And like, yeah, he's really, really good in Part 1. You know what else is really good in Part 1? Units that don't fucking leave. Sothe doesn't leave. Volug don't leave. Nolan doesn't leave. Like, none of these units leave. Tauroneo just isn't there. He isn't my absent father figure. Milk has not been, like, claimed yet, and I have no idea where he is. No, Tauroneo is very, very straightforward in that. Yes, really, really good in Part 1, and then okay in Part 3, and then, like, kind of mediocre in Part 4. But the fact that you can barely use him half the time, it's just, I can't rate him any higher than D tier, because he just isn't there. He's just a big, like, Tauroneo-shaped silhouette in my unit deployment screen. Also, if you haven't read Tauroneo supports in Path of Radiance, go and read them. They're actually really heartbreaking. What a tragic character. Anyway, yeah, Tauroneo, D tier. And the final member of the Tauroneo team, Team Tauroneo, is Zihark. Zihark is fantastic. Zihark is an A tier unit. I think he's a bit better than Volug and a bit better than Nolan. Maybe not better than Sothe. Zihark is... he falls into the category of a pre-promote in the Dawn Brigade, and that's very good. Zihark is a pre-promoted Swordmaster, joins with extremely good bases, and is superior to Edward in basically every single way. His bases are insane, his affinity is the best in the game, his growth are perfectly good, he actually has a better speed growth and a better skill growth than Edward, his strength growth is a little iffy, but his base is like kind of okay enough, the one where it doesn't really matter. He one-rounds a good chunk of enemies in Part 1 alone. He will double, I believe, every single enemy in Part 1, because his base speed is 23, I think, and the highest speed in Part 1 is 20, so literally all he needs is a single point of speed to be able to double absolutely everything, which is absolutely crazy. He's a really good candidate for feeding kills to other units, because I find that it's a case of, if Zihark uses Steel Sword on this guy, they die exactly. But if Zihark uses Iron Sword on this guy, they survive with around 1 to 4 HP or something. Ah, perfect! A kill for my staff Laura grinding, which is really, really helpful. He comes with Adept, which is a great skill in this game. It is a speed % chance to just give you an additional attack, which is excellent on Swordmasters, because I find that Swordmasters are really, really, like, Swordmasters in general in this game are pretty good, because they have good caps and just absurdly high speed. They're basically the only unit type that is capable of consistently doubling things, which is very valuable in a game where enemies are fast as fuck, boy. So that's really good. Having that additional attack basically guarantees that they'll be able to run around things. Like, Swordmasters, the only really thing that they're lacking is just that little bit of extra damage, because their strength cap can be a little low. Their damage output is pretty much their only weakness, which Adept can thankfully fix. Yeah, Zihark is, I'd say, the best of the 3 pre-promotes in A tier. Like, he's better than Volug for sure. He might be better than Sothe. He scales the best into part 3, I'd say. He's the best one you can invest into, because Zihark will still double most things in part 3, even if you haven't given him that much XP. He won't level nearly as fast as your other units, like Nolan and Edward and Aran and all that, but he can still level somewhat okay. You can give him the Paragon Scroll to try and get him a couple of levels before part 3. And getting those extra points of speed would genuinely help him out, because it would make him go from doubling most things to doubling basically everything. The biggest issue with Zihark for me, from part 3 onwards, is that Zihark is very, very squishy. He is a 30 health Swordmaster, which is incredibly low for health. I think his defense and res are perfectly fine, and they grow relatively fine, but due to the fact that dodge tanking is much harder in Radiant Dawn, and I don't believe Zihark gets access to supports until part 3 or like late part 1. So if you want to do double Earth support, like pair him up with Nolan or pair him up with Volug, that's going to be kind of difficult to do. So Zihark doesn't have that much of a reliable enemy phase due to biorhythm and stuff like that affecting Avoid, and just Avoid being a very fickle stat in general. It is very difficult to dodge tank with Zihark. And due to his health being so pitifully low, it's actually really difficult to, like, justify leaving him on enemy phase. If he can be attacked by just a single unit, I think he's fine. But if he can be attacked by more than one unit, he's going to die. Like, Zihark's bulk is, like, poor to the extent where I have seen him die in 1.5. Most people say it's like, oh, Jill actually does stand a pretty good chance of dying if her AI is bad. Like, Tauroneo is invincible. But I've also seen Zihark do his fair share of succumbing to death, a fair amount in 1.5. It's actually really frustrating, because he's squishy. He is not a tanky dude. I'd say that's his real only weakness, and it can be remedied by a double Earth support, which will give him a shitload of Avoid, and just make him much more difficult to kill. Yeah, Zihark, again, very straightforward unit, much like the rest of Tauroneo squad. You can invest into him, he can scale perfectly well into late game. While he gains like no XP in part 1, from part 3 onwards he will just start gaining it normally. He will become super quick, he will become super reliable. His only issue is like maybe kind of iffy strength and iffy durability. Perfectly good user for the Vagkati or the Alundite. You can totally bring him into the tower, I've done it before, and he's good. Swordmasters and True Blades are pretty good in Radiant Dawn due to absurdly high speed and good stat caps. I don't think he's quite stronger than Sothe, just because Sothe has Thief utility, more availability, and higher move, and just is generally just more like useful in part 1 overall, I'd say. But Zihark does scale a bit better. Anyway, very good unit. Swordmasters get to live life big in Radiant Dawn. This and FE6, these are the only games where Swordmasters actually get to be good. Okay, let's talk about Fiona. Fiona is an FT unit. There's no ifs or buts, no candy or nuts when it comes to Fiona. This unit is absolute, complete, and utter trap. This unit is bad in every single way possible, and I'm going to go into excruciating detail for why I think this unit is fascinatingly terrible. In my opinion, Fiona is not... I think she's the second worst unit in the game. She's bottom 2, saved only by the fact that there is a unit who rhymes with Maya, who may or may not be worse than her in a couple of different ways. Regardless, Fiona is absolutely atrocious and one of the worst units in Fire Emblem, period, not just Radiant Dawn. And yes, let me go into very, very almost nitpicky detail of why this unit is complete garbage. Number 1, Fiona has some of the worst bases I've ever seen in a Fire Emblem game. Bar none. Fiona's bases are embarrassing. There is no other way to put it. Fiona has single-digit stats in everything except HP and speed. And her speed is actually secretly in single digits because her strength is so low. Fiona has, I believe, a Steel Lance and a Javelin in her starting inventory, and she starts with the Steel Lance equipped, which means that she'll be losing, I believe, 4 or 5 points of speed because her strength is so garbage that she can't mitigate most of the weight from the Steel Lance. which actually means that her base speed is around 5 or 6, which in GBA terms would be okay for a unit joining from Chapter 3. This is not a GBA game, this is Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, where bases are important for a lot of units, especially for a character like Fiona who joins halfway through Part 1. Fiona straight up has like fucking level 1 bases, on a level 8 Cavalier. 8 strength, like 24 health, effectively 5 speed, shit all for skill and defense and res. Her magic is high though, so Imbue gets some value. Like, oh my god, Fiona does fucking nothing when she joins. That's just right away. This character does nothing in combat. This character, I'd say she has an even worse start than Meg. Meg, at the very least, gets to exist in a chapter where she fights Laguz, and Laguz do give tons of experience, so if you really want to baby Meg, 1-4 is actually a great chapter to do it, because she will gain a ton of XP. Fiona, on the other hand, joins effectively in 1-7, which we'll get into another one of Fiona's massive problems. But in 1-7, in the Jailbreak chapter, Fiona cannot do anything, because she gets doubled by fucking everyone. In order for Fiona to not get doubled by everyone, you will need to give her a Bronze Lance, because I believe she even gets slowed down by an Iron Lance. I believe she loses like 1 speed from an Iron Lance. And every single point of speed is vital with this shithead of a character, because she isn't going to do anything otherwise. She's not tanky enough to survive on enemy phase, because she will flat out get one-rounded by Steel Axe fighters. I found this out the hard way. I thought, it's like, oh, she'll probably get like a good chunk of damage from Steel Axe fighters, but she won't die. And then I was promptly rewarded with a death screen and the you lost a unit music, and everything came crumbling down. To which I promptly responded with, holy shit, this unit actually is worthless. Are there ways to mitigate this? Maybe Fiona's growths are good. No, they're not. Like, they aren't. They are not good. Fiona's growths are very, like, all-round across the board okay. You might expect a unit like this to have such atrocious bases, to have decent growths, and they're not terrible, I want to say. Like, I know her speed growth is good, and I know her defensive growths are really good, but like, her strength growth is bad, her skill growth is bad, her HP growth is bad, and it just results in a unit that doesn't really do anything. Much like how I talked about how Nolan is a unit who is just all-round pretty good, Fiona isn't a unit that is all-round very bad. Fiona just doesn't contribute anything into combat, and that is a huge problem, and she doesn't grow very well. And while her base level is like okay, I want to say she's level 8, she just doesn't have much room to grow, because we need to move on to Fiona's actual biggest problem, and the most fascinating part of Fiona. Fiona's availability is similar to Tauroneo's in a way, in that it's complete and utter garbage. In Part 1, Fiona is available for 2 chapters. For some reason, this unit was just not allowed to leave the barracks. She's available in 1-7 and in 1 endgame. And, fun fact, this also draws us to another part of Radiant Dawn's wacky fuck calves mechanic. Calves lose 2 movement when they're indoors, and there are a fair amount of indoors maps, predominantly in Part 1. Wouldn't you believe it, both 1-7 and 1 endgame take place indoors. Fiona goes from a 8 move unit to a 6 move unit. Now, she does still have Canto, which is nice, but it effectively means that she is just an infantry unit with Canto, which sucks, so her being a cav ultimately doesn't help her in any way. This also means you only get 2 chapters to train her, should you want to do it. I don't know why you would. Maybe you're insane and messed up in the head like I am. Maybe you got a fucking railway spike mashed through your head and you're like, oh, Fiona good. She's very, 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 you know, I'm not even going to say very, very, very difficult to train, like difficult to promote before 1 endgame. She's basically impossible to promote before 1 endgame without excessive grinding. Like, you just can't. There isn't enough XP to go around. There flat out isn't. Now, let's move on to Part 3 onwards. You know what? Maybe Fiona's availability gets better. Maybe her usability gets a bit better. Oh, whoops, swamp map. Okay, let's just go over Fiona's maps in Part 3. 3-6 is the swamp map, which means your movement is incredibly limited, and it's mainly a defensive chapter, ultimately meaning that you having Canto or a mount or increased move doesn't really matter that much. And since Fiona's defenses are fucking atrocious, and because her stat caps are atrocious, meaning that even if you train her, she's not going to have particularly high stats. Okay, so that's bad. 3-12, that's a mountain chapter. Again, a very defensive chapter, so wouldn't you know it, having high moved and like Canto and all the aspects of a cav that you would otherwise find useful just aren't helpful. 3-13, wouldn't you know it? Fun fact, I didn't realize this until my most recent playthrough. For some reason, 3-13 is counted as indoors, despite the fact that I can clearly fucking see snow falling onto the courtyard. Yes, I get it, a courtyard is a part of a building that is technically, like, there's no ceiling, there's no roof, but it is technically part of the building. The fact that it still counts as indoors is fucked and stupid. Like, that chapter is indoors purely to fuck over Fiona. No other unit in the game. Actually, excuse me. Jill also gets fucked over. She loses 2 move. The Flyers fare less terribly from it. Fiona just genuinely feels like an experiment by the developers to test just like how terrible can we make a unit, but like under the radar almost. Like how many features can we just keep on adding to this character to just make her seem like as innocuous and seemingly just like, oh, her stats are bad, I just want to use her. But then you try to use her and it's like, oh, maybe she'll grow well. And then you realize like, oh, shit availability, terrible maps for her, bad class. Okay weapon type? Good affinity, I'll give her that. She has Earth affinity. I think a character with Earth affinity can't be like the worst character in the game, because at the very least she can provide 45 avoid for someone else. She's one of the few characters who joins with 2 skills, and both of them are kind of okay. Savior's nice, it means you don't have any penalty from rescuing, which can be occasionally helpful. It doesn't help her at all, because her stats are already so garbage that if she didn't have Savior, the reduction, like the stat reduction from rescuing wouldn't even be that severe. She'd lose like 4 speed. And Imbue makes it so it's renewal, but instead of healing 10% of your max HP, which is garbage, you heal your magic as HP, which can be good on some characters. On Fiona, it's actually pretty alright, because her base magic is good. It's a gimmicky skill. On most characters, it just flat out isn't good. But yeah, no, Fiona is fascinatingly terrible. Fun fact, Fiona is actually the reason I'm making a Radiant Dawn video to begin with. Because after having used her for a full playthrough, I just really wanted to talk about just how absolutely god-awful, like comically god-awful this unit is. I want to say she's the worst unit in the game, but she actually isn't just by nature of there being a worse unit in this game. Like with Meg, it's fascinating that a unit this terrible is not the worst unit in the game. Yeah, Fiona F tier. Absolute meme unit. Use her, she's a lot of fun to use. Like Meg. All of the F tier units are really, really fun to use, and if you haven't used them for a full playthrough, I would genuinely recommend them. Because they are a lot of fun. And next, oh my god, yeah, we're in for a fucking landslide of bad units. I'm just gonna rate these 3 units as one unit, because they basically all do the same thing. It's the Tormod squad. Tormod / Muarim / Vika is one of the most fascinating, like, I don't even know what you want to call this, like, case studies in Radiant Dawn. They are the big... For starters, I think I'm going to put them in... Where do they go? No, they go in E tier. They do go in E tier. I'm going to put all 3 of them in E tier just because of the biggest... Alright, let me just talk about what they do well first. They are similar to a lot of units in Part 1, like Sothe, like Zihark, like Tauroneo, like Volug. They're all effectively pre-promotes in that they are units that join with incredibly good stats for their joining time. Tormod's very good. He will double and kill most units. He hits really hard. Muarim's fucking absurd for his join time. When transformed, he doesn't take any damage from anything and will one round pretty much every single unit in Part 1 because his strength is disgustingly high and his speed is high enough to double. And Vika has some utility as well because she's a flyer with 8 move when transformed. She doubles pretty much everything. She does decent damage. She can soften up units for weaker units to gain kills. There is some utility there. Now, let's go over why these seemingly good units are in E tier. Note how I've only been talking about their Part 1 performance and not their Part 2 or their Part 3 performance. That might be because they don't fucking have a Part 2 or Part 3 performance, and they barely have a Part 4 performance. These 3 chuckle fucks, I want to say, other than like certain units like Royals like Gifka and whatchamacallit, like Renning, other than those units, these 3 have the worst availability in the game. They appear for most of 1.7, force deployed in 1.8, and you can deploy them in 1 endgame. And then after that, these fuckers just vanish off the face of the earth. Who knows what they do for Part 2 and Part 3? I'm pretty sure the writers actually just fucking forgot about them. They're gone. They just vanished into the ether. Don't worry about it. Disappeared from the story entirely. So yes, they can have a pretty good showing in Part 1, but honestly, they're not like absurdly good to the point where I think they're a must-have in Part 1. Like, they're force deployed in 1.8 and 1.7, and they do perfectly well there. On a first playthrough, you might bring them into endgame, but, like, after that, you would never bring them into endgame of Part 1, because you know they're just going to go whoop, and just go back to their home planet and stop existing. Because once they come back in Part 4, these fuckers do nothing. They are not good anymore. They are so bad that Tormod is not doing any damage. He will not double anything. Muarim is getting doubled by basically everything, and Vika is actually still surprisingly fast. I did find that Vika is still doubling everything, but fun fact, she's also doing 0 damage to everything, so that doubling doesn't matter in the slightest. Yeah, these 3 are the biggest, just, like, advertising label for why availability is so important in Radiant Dawn. They're below someone like Tauroneo, who even has... Like, Tauroneo has bad availability, but he's still, like, good when he comes back in Part 3. He's just less good. When these guys come back in part 4, they are worthless. They're actually a liability. Oh, yeah, no. There is very little good about these units. Like, they have a good start in part 1. Their classes aren't very good. Like, 2 of them are Lagoos, so they're forced onto a permanent 1-range class that has to deal with Lagoos gauge, and Lagoos gauge sucks cocks, because half the time you're just not doing anything. Half the time you're just huffing Olivia Grass to try and become something useful. And Tormod's stuck on Sage, which is a shitty class with shitty stat caps. And his growths aren't that great. He doesn't grow very well. When he comes back in part 4, like, his bases look really good in part 1, but once you come back in part 4 and take a second look at his bases, they're actually really not that good. Your other units like Soren or even like weaker sages like Khalil are just better. Yeah, let's compare Tormod to Khalil, because they're both fire sages. Khalil's bases are better. Her availability is still not great, but Khalil just is better. Like, her growths are a bit better. Her bases are a bit better. Her weapon ranks are a bit better. Like, she's just better. And Khalil isn't a very good unit to begin with, which should go to show just how weak Tormod is. Actually, okay, I will say this. I forgot to mention this. This is the best part of Tormod. Tormod joins with Celerity, which is one of the best skills in the game. It gives you +2 move when you have it equipped. Plain and simple. It is a temporary pair of boots for the character who has it equipped. Now, this is obviously incredible. Remember to fucking remove this before he leaves, otherwise this shit is gone, and you will never see it again. Celerity can be really good on a variety of different units. It can be really good on a Aran, it can be really good on your Lord, it can be, like, 2 move is good on everyone. It's always good. There's never a point of the game where 2 move will be bad. And I will say that's a point in Tormod's favor, because, like, would I rank him up because of that? He's the one who gives it. It's the same thing with, like, well, Meg is giving me 3,000 gold by nature of joining with Fortune, and I will sell it immediately. Like, without Tormod, I wouldn't get Celerity, and units like my Racing in Endgame wouldn't have +2 move. I'm gonna rank Tormod and Muarim up to D tier, purely just because Tormod joins with Celerity, and that's enough for me to bump him up to D tier, because it's good enough. It's basically the best skill in the game. And Muarim is up into D tier because, like, Muarim is like Tauroneo levels of stats in part 1. He's absolutely fucking absurd. Like, he is nigh unkillable and does a shit zillion damage. He is absurd. Whereas Vika is useful in 1-8, and that's kind of it. Like, the rest, like, she's not even that strong for part 1. Like, she's useful, she'll double everything, but she doesn't actually do that much damage. She's good, okay for softening up units, but you also have, like, a bunch of other units for that, and they don't require, like, Goose Gauge or the constant, like, abusal of your Olivia Grass. I'd love to put them all in E tier, but Celerity is a hell of a drug. These 3 chuckle fucks are absolutely the biggest case of availability is the most important feature in Radiant Dawn. Because if you were on the side of availability doesn't matter, then where the fuck would you rank these 3? D tier for Tormod and Muarim, and E tier for Vika. I'd really like to use these units more, because Tormod, like, the Lagoos Emancipation Army is a neat little faction in Talius, and it doesn't really get too much play. But yeah, they're exactly where they belong. What an absolute waste of units. It would have been really cool if the writers didn't fucking forget about them. And next, oh my god, I just want to rate a normal unit. This is the problem with the Radiant Dawn tier list, is, like, a lot of the part 1 units, like, oh, it's easy to rate someone like Edward or Leonardo, because their availability isn't a problem. I'm just gonna rate Nailah first. Where do you rank Lagoos rules? Nailah is probably the best of the Lagoos rules, just because she has the best availability. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put Nailah in B tier. For, like, Nailah is just a very, very difficult unit to rate. She's very, very straightforward. I'm not going to talk about her for more than a minute. Yeah, she kills everything. She's like Volug, but, like, to an extreme degree. She will murder everything. She's a 9-move delete button, which is very, very nice. She's strictly better than Volug in basically every single way. But she's also only available for 2 chapters in part 1, nothing in part 3, and only 2 chapters in part 4. In part 4, she is very good, because she is just available for all of it, and will be absolutely invaluable in dealing with a lot of units, because part 4 can be pretty challenging in a lot of areas if you don't have good units, or you haven't built up a strong army for each separate individual army, which is lovely. Lagoos rolls are there to just be a crutch or a safety net for players who haven't properly built their armies up, and that's good. And I would say she's the strongest of the Lagoos rolls, purely just because her availability is the best. And she's really fast, she's a really good all-rounder. She's, like, probably the weakest stat-wise, but it doesn't really matter because their stats are so, like, overinflated that it doesn't matter if you have, like, 50 million strength, oh, I'll kill one shot, or, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm killing this person, like, 4 times over. I'm killing their descendants by, like, doing this. The amount of damage I'm doing is severing their bloodline. Yeah, Nailah's a B tier unit. I was half tempted just to add a tier that just says Lagoos rules, but for now I'll just place her in B tier. She's obviously incredible, but she's barely available, so B tier, simple as that. Oh my god, I just want a normal unit. Okay, Rafiel. Rafiel is kind of a normal unit. Rafiel is the first Aran you get. He's the first dancer you get. And upon my most recent playthrough, I actually found myself liking Rafiel a lot less than I did on my earlier playthroughs. I think I'm going to place him in A tier, purely just because dancers are so fantastic. That being said, he isn't the strongest Heron by a long shot. Rafiel is the Heron that cannot fly. For story reasons, his wings just have ceased to work. And this means he is a 5-move dancer, which can be pretty iffy, but to compensate for this, Rafiel permanently dances for 4 units around him, which is incredibly powerful, because a 4-person dancer is obviously insanely good value. It effectively means he is giving 4 actions to 4 other units. Like, imagine just a unit where you can use like an ability where it's like, yo, I get to take 4 extra attacks. Now, it's better than that. It's 4 extra moves and attacks. Like, the amount of value you can get from that is absolutely absurd. Now, this sounds really good on paper, and you might think, oh, Rafiel is the strongest Heron because of this, because Leanne can only ever do it for 2 units. And Rayson needs to be transformed to do it for 4 units. Before my most recent playthrough, I did think Rafiel was the strongest, but I recently realized it's just like, Rafiel's availability is awful. I'd almost say it's the same as Nailah's, where he's available for 2 chapters in part 1, and then none of part 3, and 2 chapters before the tower in part 4. And in part 4, I do think he's really good. He's really helpful in both of those chapters. But in part 1, he's not actually that helpful, I don't think. Like, I think he's pretty good in 1 endgame, but in 1.8, he spawns in such an awkward position where he doesn't really accomplish that much, and his move is so crippled that unless you give him something like Celerity, which I think is kind of a waste on Rafiel, he just doesn't really catch up with the rest of the army, and he's just kind of lagging behind. And I will also say this about dancers in Radiant Dawn. In some cases, like, in some games, you can just have dancers occasionally out of position, just like, oh, they can take a hit, they'll be fine. This means I can just play around with them, maybe do some dumb positioning with them to get some, like, incredibly aggressive dancer plays. You can't really do that in Radiant Dawn, because if you leave a dancer in range, or in enemy range on Radiant Dawn, they're going to die because their stats are actually incredibly low. Like, I was astonished to look at Rayson and Leanne's and Rafiel's stats and be like, holy shit, they have like 6 speed. They will just evaporate on enemy phase. So you can't do that, which makes them a little bit worse. Or actually, I should clarify, it makes Rafiel a little bit worse, because both Leanne and Rayson have Canto, and Rafiel doesn't. And Rafiel will never get Canto, even when transformed. His transformed form is basically completely pointless. He just goes, and turns into a chicken that can't fly. It's completely pointless. And I want to say he has the worst availability of all the Herons, because Leanne's available for some, like 2 chapters in part 2, and then a little bit of part 3, like 1 chapter in part 3 before part 4, so she's a little bit better than Rafiel, but she's also a little bit weaker. I believe she also has reduced move. I think she has 6 move, maybe like 8 move when transformed. And then Rayson is available for a good chunk of part 3, and is genuinely fantastic. You know, I'm just gonna rate the Herons now. I'm gonna put Leanne in A tier and Rayson in S tier. Rayson is absurdly strong. He is just your traditional dancer. I believe he has 7 move, point and click, dance. 1 dance. But when he's transformed, it turns into a 4-person dance. All around him, which is obviously insane. He just turns into Rafiel but better when transformed, and transforming him is completely doable most of the time. Just give him all the Goostone or have him huff all of your grass if he's not doing anything, because sometimes you just don't need the dance. And he also gets access to other Goldrars. He gets access to Bliss pretty quickly, and Bliss can be really helpful from time to time. I've actually found myself using Bliss more often than I would have thought. The most important part of Rayson is both the fact that he has the highest move of all the Herons, he has the highest availability, and he has Canto, which means he can reliably, like, ooh, move in, dance, and ooh, move back out to safety. This is really, really good. He's a dancer, dancers dance, dancers are fantastic, and Rayson is no different. He's a flying dancer, fucking fantastic. Let me talk about Leanne. Leanne is an A tier unit. Very, very similar to Rayson. However, Leanne, I'm actually just going to look at Leanne's movement really quickly. I want to say Leanne has 6 move. Oh, she starts with 5 and moves up to 6. That's a little rough. Okay, that's less good than I would have thought. Leanne also has 5 movement, which is the same as Rafiel, but she gets 6 when she transforms, which is a little bit better, but she doesn't actually get that much from transforming. She gets 1 point of move, and her dance stays exactly the same, which is she dances for 2 people in a line, effectively, like horizontally or vertically to her, which is good. It's the most consistent, but it's also, like, not nearly as good as a 4-person dance. A 2-person dance is obviously still excellent. She's still very, very useful. She's still definitely an A-tier unit. But she's not S tier like Rayson purely because 1, her availability is worse. 2, having less move is obviously not crippling, but it's significant enough to rank her lower. Yeah, no, she's just a little bit lackluster in comparison to Rayson. I'm comparing Rafiel and Leanne to Rayson at pretty much all times. Like, Rayson is with you for most of part 3. Like, from, I think, 3.5 onwards. Like, 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, like, all that I want to say, he's available. And he's just has a lot more presence in the game. and is just generally a lot more viable, whereas Rafiel can't fly, and Leanne just isn't quite as good as her brother. The reason Rayson is an S tier while the other two are an A tier is pretty much because of availability, movement, and Canto. Just a mixture of those three. It's not stats, it's not like growths or anything like that. Nothing traditional, just that. Yeah, all three are very, very strong units. But I think I'd rate Leanne a little bit above Rafiel literally just because Leanne has Canto, which means she can dance a little bit more safely. All the dancers are still very, very strong though. I love Herons. Love them to pieces. Okay, oh my god. I haven't had a normal unit in so long. Okay, let's do the last part 1 unit. The last part 1 unit is the Black Knight. Again, how the fuck are you supposed to rank this unit? The Black Knight may as well be a Laguz Royal. You get the Black Knight in 1-9 and 1 end game, and 3-6, I think that's it. So you get him for 3 chapters. He's very similar to Nailah in a way, in that, yes, he's basically invincible, and he just exists as a way for you to get through the chapter. I'm almost tempted just to not rank him, but where are you supposed to rank him? He's not a unit, he's just a force of destruction, because he is effectively invincible. Although, I did find out, on my most recent playthrough, that he can be damaged by Tiger Laguz, which was a surprise, because I thought his armor was supposed to be blessed by the goddess, but there's probably story shenanigans for why that shit isn't blessed anymore. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The Black Knight comes with Alundite, 1-2 range weapon, kills everything, stand-up guy, hottest clubs, coolest dudes, you know the fucking copy pasta, it's fine. I'm really just wondering where to put him, because he's such a, well, he's not S tier, obviously, he's not A tier, but he's not, F tier or E tier, he's just a case of where do I place him, B, C, or D? I don't know. He doesn't have any presence past Part 3. I guess he's a green unit in 4-3, but he does nothing in that chapter, because it's a fucking desert, and he's an Armor Knight, so you just get to see him waddle around in the sand. I'm leaning towards just placing him in C tier, because while he is helpful, obviously, he is virtually mandatory for 1-9, you basically need him to be the chapter. You can bring him in 1 endgame if you want to recruit Sephiran for endgame of Part 4, which is obviously always nice, but he's not super necessary. I'm thinking I'm going to place the Black Knight in C tier. I'm just going to place the Black Knight in C tier, and we will call it a day. Yes, he's fantastic in the chapters he is in. He's also not in too many chapters, and while you can give him a Bronze Lance to help him, or help fight him in 4 endgame 2, it's more of a meme strat and not actually that helpful. No idea why they gave him Lance rank. It's super weird and not actually important. If you want a proper review of the Black Knight, just go and look at the Nailah one, because they're effectively the same unit. I'd say the Black Knight's a little bit worse than Nailah, just because Nailah has more move. And while he does have 1-2 range, Nailah has better availability, and you can actually bring her into the tower. He's very useful in the chapters he's in, but guess what? He's only in 3 of them, so he probably has the worst availability in the game. C tier.
And with that, we're finally done with all of Part 1. Good fucking god, this game is big. I may have underestimated just how big Radiant Dawn is from the get-go. I thought it was I made a joke about 4-hour video at the start. We're 2 hours in and we're only a quarter of the way through. So if I kept this pace up, it would be an 8-hour video. So, I'm going to split this into 4 parts. 1 for my sanity, and 2 for the viewer at home, so they don't have to watch an 8-hour video. And 3 for my computer, so it doesn't have to render a fucking 8-hour video and wheeze and puff and die. So, I will see you all for Part 2, and Part 3, and Part 4, coming relatively soon. Alright, see you then, guys.